After a rest day in Andorra, it's back to business and the return to French soil via the final Pyrenean climb. It's the quintessential transitional stage. It could be one for the sprinters, perhaps a breakaway, or somewhere in the middle for the specialist of the one-day classics. Hello and welcome to stage 10 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you in Revel as the peloton bids farewell to Andorra, the home to some 11 riders in this year's Tour de France. Stage 10, it starts in the heart of Andorra. There's a Category 1 climb as soon as they make their way out and across into the French border. It's the Port d'Envalira. It's then a downhill run until they hit a Category 3 climb within 7 k's of the finish line in Revel, 197 kilometres. Countdown to get the stage underway, where the weather conditions at the start fairly pleasant. Temperatures in the low 20s, although there's been a few drops of rain at the finish line earlier on this morning, but they've all cleared up so far this afternoon, and let's hope it stays that way. Brice Filou was the first to attack when the flag came in. His only ever victory as a professional cyclist was a stage winner of the Tour de France in Andorra. A sharing of the biddens at the front. This is Samy Dumoulin from AG2R Le Mondial, and the world champion needs no introduction. Peter Sagan, as always, one of the big aggressors. A really strong group of 9 at one point was off the front, and it included Vincenzo Nibali. This is Martin Alminger at the front for IM Cycling, and he's followed by Ilnur Zakarin from Katusha. Steve Cummings was in the breakaway that included Peter Sagan not too long ago, but there's been a big reaction from the peloton. Rui Costa was also there. Mikel Landa was in the move for Team Sky. Michael Matthews was there for the Orica Bike Exchange team. The diminutive Samy Dumoulin, who has been a stage winner in the Tour de France. That was in 2008 into Nantes in atrocious weather conditions, as he's just struggling to get the bidden. Out to 1 minute and 5 seconds. They're on the long descent after going across the final Pyrenean climb of this year's race. And thankfully, they've made it through the technical part of that descent all safely, because as you can see by the amount of cloud cover that we're now going through, it was a misty descent. Not a lot of visibility and a little bit damp as a result. The yellow jersey of Chris Froome, he looked very relaxed at the press conference yesterday. Not a lot of tension at Team Sky. Understandably, they've got plenty of confidence in the depth and strength of the team and the performance of Chris Froome in the first mountaintop finish of the race. That was winner Annacona, just indicating to Chris Froome that it looked as if his jersey was about to slip out. These are the chasers trying to go across to the leading 2 riders. They're 25 seconds off the pace, and it is a strong group. Greg Van Avermaet is there once again, flying the flag for BMC. Daryl Olympian, Michael Matthews, along with Luke Durbridge, all there for Orica Bike Exchange. This is a very strong group. Tony Galopin in the red colours of Lotto Soudal. Mikel Landa for Sky, the Norwegian national champion Edvald Bosenhagen. Michael Matthews sits behind him. Gorka Izagirre is the rider from Movistar. All smiles, Chris Froome and Alejandro Valverde. They seem very content with the composition of the breakaway group and prepared to let it go. This is Damiano Caruso from BMC. Here's Vincenzo Nibali. He's made it pretty clear, Vincenzo, that he wants to win a stage. Luke Durbridge, who knows these roads well, one of the locals. Steve Cummings at the back of the group, number 104. There's Impey, 105 from Orica Bike Exchange. He was in the breakaway when Steve Cummings won. That was to Lake de Piau. And the skin suit being worn today by Michael Matthews, which is a clear indication that this is a stage that he marked. Gorka Izagirre is the rider at the front for the Movistar team. Very strong breakaway group doing the chasing. Samy Dumoulin and Peter Sagan off the front, still working strongly together. This is Pierre Rolland in the peloton. Had a difficult day at that finish at the Arcalise, paying the price for the crash that he had on the stage before. And some bad news for his team. Sebastian Langeveld, the Dutchman from the Cannondale-Drapac team, who we've seen a fair bit of in that first week protecting Pierre Rolland on the flat, windy sections of the race. He has abandoned the race today. That makes him the 6th rider to abandon this year's Tour de France. So on stage 10, there's still 192 riders in the race from the 198 who kicked off on the opening day as we headed to Utah Beach. Thibaut Pinot, the man who's made it pretty clear that he wants the King of the Mountains jersey. He didn't quite get the points on today's climb, a Category 1 climb. It was Tom Dumoulin who collected maximum points, with Rui Costa in second position. But that doesn't impact on the lead of Thibaut Pinot in the race for the Polka Dots. The rainbow jersey, Peter Sagan, assessing the situation with the look across the shoulder. Sitting on the top tube, much as we saw with Chris Froome a few days ago. One of the challenges for Peter Sagan, being in the break with Samy Dumoulin, is that you don't get a lot of drafting benefit sitting behind Sam. He's about to get some more because this group is making its way across, and this is a world-class group. Tony Galopin for Lotto Soudal. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, a dual stage winner of the race back in 2011. Chris Froome was full of praise for his team a couple of days ago, and so he should have been. They were outstanding on stage 9 to the Arcalise. Brian Coquard from Direct Energy with the glasses in his teeth. Thomas Voeckler alongside him. As Peter Sagan and Samy Dumoulin now get picked up by the group of chasers. This is a formidable group, now with an advantage of almost 3 minutes. And this could very well be the group that goes all the way through to the finish to win the stage. With so many strong teams represented, you have to ask the question, who is going to do the chasing? And many of the sprinters have got teammates in this breakaway. Andre Greipel has got Tony Galopin in the break, and Mark Cavendish has got Steve Cummings in the breakaway. And Peter Sagan, well, he's always one of the favourites. Well, it now provides a nice stopover spot for a lot of migrating birds. There's plenty of water sport here as well. You can see some of the sailing boats. There's a canoeing and kayaking club that is down there. And there's a fair bit of angling that is done, as they've put plenty of fish into that lake that was created back in 1985. We return to the breakaway group. Gorka Izagirre from Movistar. He's wearing the yellow helmet because Movistar are the leaders of the team's classification. It's not nice to eavesdrop, unless you're watching the Tour de France and Luke Durbridge and Michael Matthews are having a conversation at the back of the breakaway.
Greg Van Avermaet was at the back of the group having something to eat, and I'm sure he was trying to listen in just a little bit as well. Out in a break like that, information is power, and if you can hear the team, another team discussing their tactic, know what's coming, big advantage. But looking back at the peloton, we were talking about Katusha before. They rode, then they stopped, then they rode again, and their team director was interviewed. I just saw his comments online just before. Jose Azevedo, former professional, the Portuguese, he said, we went back and kept riding in the hope that another team or two would come up and help us. We can't close this alone. If they don't come, we will stop, which they did. And now Sky are just going to ride tempo. Peter Sagan, he is thinking about points at the intermediate sprint firstly, and then trying to win another stage, from which will come more points and put himself into green. But we've seen Michael Matthews getting active at the intermediate sprints. Let's have a look how far behind he is there, Matt.
Well, he's 130 points behind the leader, Mark Cavendish. He's a long way off the pace.
Which begs the question, why is Matthews being so active at the intermediate sprints? He might be thinking, this tour is going to get very hard at the end. Some of the other sprinters may not make it all the way to Paris, which will bump me up in the standings. And he may be practicing for next year, the year after, when he thinks I can be a contender for green.
This is curious. Why is IM Cycling going to the front and assisting with the chase? More on that in a moment as we look at Thibaut Pinot at the back in the polka dot jersey. There was a comment that came through after stage 9 from Thomas de Gendt, who said that as they were going for the King of the Mountains sprints, Thibaut Pinot said to Thomas de Gendt, the King of the Mountains points, they're for me. And he asked him not to contest them.
So he thought it was a post-tour criterium already.
You can imagine Thomas de Gendt's response to that. It's a race. I may not be able to beat you in the King of the Mountains classification, but I'm going to try.
I'm not sure Thomas de Gendt even would have given the comments by Pinot enough respect to even warrant giving an answer. I think he just would have looked at him in some sort of disgust and then sprinted.
Peter Sagan at the front with Gorka Izagirre. 10 kilometres before the intermediate sprint. What do you think that conversation is about?
Really hard to say at this point what they could possibly be talking about tactically this far to go. Maybe just more about that intermediate sprint and how Peter would rather not have it be a sprint. But I don't know why he'd be talking to Gorka Izagirre about that. Probably better to go and talk to Michael Matthews, so let's just keep this thing rolling. But whatever the case, they'll both get good points at the intermediate sprint, whoever's first and second.
Well, this Abbey that we're now getting a chance to take a look at, first recorded as the construction getting underway, the original part of the building, way back in 778. It was taken by the Spanish, returned to the French. It swapped hands a few times. It was originally built under the order of the Emperor of the local county to be a monastery and a humble church. Well, it's not all that humble, really, when you look at it today. And it was partly destroyed by a big flood back in 1279. Has been rebuilt quite a few times. It's been listed as part of the National Estate since 1791. The accommodation that we had last night was an old abbey from the 14th century that we had the privilege to be able to stay in. The most disappointing part of that was that we arrived at the hotel at 12:30 at night and we checked out at about 9 o'clock in the morning, so we didn't get to enjoy it at all. A brief look from the breakfast table.
It always seems to be the way at the tour that your very best accommodation is the night that you get there really late and you have to leave early the next morning. Just Murphy's law of the tour.
On those ones, give me an Abyss. When we've got a long stopover, we'll take the old abbey that's been converted into a hotel.
They're the ones you always hope to get on a rest day. Also, as a rider, it's always really nice to go into a good hotel, especially one that's a bit roomy, because a lot of the places are a bit small and the riders share rooms with each other. So you don't have the whole space to yourself. Always good to get a good, big chateau on a rest day if you possibly can. But it's luck of the draw. But at the end of the tour, all the teams end up having the same level of accommodation. Whether they get 2, 3 or 4 star, it's always mixed around that everybody gets it at some stage. You have a lesser one, you have a better one.
And by the end,
equal.
It works out to be equal. Greg Van Avermaet at the front for BMC with this breakaway group now at 6 minutes and 50 seconds. So it's a bit of a standoff at this point between the peloton and the breakaway.
Behind that, it got interesting. It was breezy like today. And when you look through the results, and for those at home, you can go through, pore over them, take a look at the whole lot. But the peloton was split to pieces. 17 riders in the front part of the peloton, 20 seconds back to the next group, another 20 seconds back to the next group. They were all over the place. So even if this break gets a lot of leeway and wins by a long way, that Category 3 climb at the end has the potential to shake things up just a little bit, make riders very nervous, of course, and it's possible. Guys can steal 10, 15, 20 seconds on GC. On a stage you think, well, this one's all over, we're all safe.
And looking at the flags, the wind is picking up. That prospect of crosswind before they even get to the Category 3 climb. 1.5 kilometres roughly, if the road book is consistent with the kilometre ticker, until they hit the intermediate sprint. Peter Sagan most definitely will go to try and collect the 20 points, which will move him into the lead in the race for the green jersey. The only rider I see in that group challenging him is Michael Matthews. But, Robbie, if you could get into the ears of Michael Matthews, what would your recommendation be? Sprint or save?
Save. I would be in his ear in the radio saying, just let Peter have the points. He's so far in front. If you really want the points, just roll over in second. You don't have to do much to beat the rest of the group. Don't waste your energy sprinting. Save it. There's a stage win up for grabs. Concentrate on the big prize.
Let's see what happens. 1 kilometre until they hit that point. Steve Cummings in the white colours rolls through, and Michael Matthews has got himself on the wheel of Peter Sagan.
And in my opinion, he should just stay on it. Stay in the slipstream, just follow him across, pick off some points.
And if he gets second, he'll get 17 points. And Peter Sagan looks as if he's having the conversation with Michael.
Matthew, or Michael. What's your name again? Let's not waste energy. That's not my best Peter Sagan impersonation. I'll leave that to him, but he's got quite a unique voice. But we're not wanting to be waste energy, and I'm sure he's making that clear to Michael Matthews.
The others, 500 metres, Edvald Boasson lines up on the wheel.
Is he doing Cav a favour? Is he going to sprint and try and just take some points away?
He's quick enough to challenge. Michael Matthews is letting the wheel of Peter Sagan go. This looks like a sprint of negotiation, and Peter Sagan has spoken to just about everybody in this group. And he rolls off the front, he'll collect 20 points, and now Michael Matthews just edges his way forward without wasting any energy. Second, please, everyone. Second it is for Michael Matthews. Sagan collects 20 points, 17 points for Michael Matthews.
You're going to have to check the regulations also, Matt, to see if there's still any time bonuses available.
Yes.
There is, and that's why Caruso followed Michael Matthews and got the last of the time bonuses. He's the best on GC. I'll just get that tiny bit closer again. Don't know if that 2 seconds or 1 second. No, 1 second's not going to make the big difference, but
psychological.
He's thinking about moving up in GC with this move. 12 minutes 13 behind now, 12:12 behind Chris Froome, and with a 6:20 gap, which would effectively put him where, Matt, in GC, if he can move up to around 6 minutes. He will then go into the top 20.
Which is a good day.
From 25th.
Well, Peter Sagan now is back in a very familiar position. Tomorrow he'll be wearing the green jersey for the 75th time or the 76th time in his career at the Tour de France, and he's riding his 92nd or 93rd stage in the Tour. What a strike rate.
Unbelievable.
That's Luke Durbridge just swinging off his turn done. The diminutive figure there of Samy Dumoulin. Peter Sagan, the world champion, followed by Michael Matthews in the dark blue jersey behind him. It's the Sky rider who's got into that group, Mikel Landa.
Well, good move by Sky, because Landa's really not been riding at all well on this race.
And I think one of the reasons what it could do to Landa getting into a breakaway sometimes, because it's a steady, constant tempo throughout the day, it's almost a rest day for a guy like him. He's not going to ride at 110% there. He'll probably ride 90, 95%, but you're riding in the breakaway group at a steady speed, so it's sometimes a little bit easier than being in the main field, which is going faster and slower and faster and slower. Those changes in speed make it much more difficult throughout the course of the day.
Well, look at the work being done here by Daryl Impey here. He's on the Orica Bike Exchange squad, and he really is putting some hard turns into that now, because he knows these boys are in danger of slowing down too much and he's trying to get him up there to that last climb of the day. Matthews will be a big favourite if it comes to the end like this, and Orica need a result now, I think, and they've put 3 riders in this front group. Sagan, of course, will be looking for the move. Greg Van Avermaet will be looking for the move. These are riders, they're opportunists. Steve Cummings expect to look for the move. It's all going to come on that last climb. Even Nibali himself, he wants stages, he could try it. There's so many guys going to rip the legs apart on this little tiny 3rd category climb, which tops out just 7 kilometres from the end.
Well, that's the funny thing, Phil. It's not really a massive climb, but the strategic positioning of that climb at 7 kilometres to go makes it the ideal launch pad for a breakaway move. And the climb itself is 1.8 kilometres long. The last down here to finish it was 2010, and the man who got a clear on his own was Alexander Vinokourov, and then the whole of the main field charged into town almost hot on his wheels.
Yes, it's the 10th time we come into Revel. It's a pretty little town, and not exactly pretty where we're finishing, I've got to be honest, but the town square is quite nice. But it is such a small town. I think we've stopped everybody in the town getting out their houses today with all the vehicles of the Tour de France literally parked outside their front doors. 4 minutes 41. It's just about being held, but when you see a line like this, you know the front end are really driving and the back boys are just about hanging on for the moment. It is really, really tough, and Thomas de Gendt just peeping into our picture. He's good in the mountains, but he's not too happy on these long, flat straights. Still at the front there, you've got the rider riding extremely well now, and he's clearly trying to chase down his own teammate, Thomas Voeckler. Rain has come back sadly, and the roads are not too pleasant just at the moment, especially in the peloton. Plenty of support there for the Polish rider Bartosz Suzacki, but he isn't in the leading group. 4 minutes and 21 seconds just now. They've fallen behind the best time of the day now, so they're more or less running on course for an actual arrival time on schedule. Headwind has seen to that. Quick sight of the devil there jumping up and down. Let's hope he doesn't affect the gap on the breakaway there. There's the peloton. They're not looking like they're chasing quite as hard now to me. These are lovely typical French towns in this area of the Haute-Garonne and the Aude, with those lovely plane trees. They specifically prune them so they've got bare trunks and they just appear out the top. They're beautiful. They do keep the town cool in the summer. This is Castelnaudary.
Well, if you're into cuisine, and I'm sure many people who watch the Tour de France for the architecture and the history, you'll be very happy to know that this town here is very famous for its cassoulet. In fact, it's the self-proclaimed capital of the world of cassoulet, and they have a cassoulet festival every year since 2000. So if you've got nothing to do in August, we'll pop down to the festival of cassoulet, which is a very heavy stewy from this region, with plenty of beans and local sausages mixed into it. And of course the town itself goes back to the medieval times. It was one of the fortified towns along here, and it actually sits perfectly right on the Canal du Midi, which links Bordeaux on the Atlantic Ocean to Sète on the Mediterranean Sea. Well, 30 kilometres. Bear in mind at 7 kilometres to go, they will peak out towards the top of that climb.
Well, we're in and out of rain squalls, but it looks to me as though the peloton are now enjoying better conditions out on the course, but they're still trailing by 4¼ minutes.
Well, I think now, Phil, in all honesty, it's going to take a miracle for the main field to catch that leading group of 15 riders, because they've got to do it before they get till about 10 kilometres to go, because they realise that nasty little climb towards the end, the leading group will start to split up. The men who want to win the stage will be launching their attacks, and that will push up their speed. But just looking down from the helicopter, when you see the main field, they certainly haven't given that 15-man breakaway group today the freedom to win the stage.
It looked as though it was going to run away, because I said to Paul Sherwin that I think this is going to get 10 minutes, and once they got 7, the reverse happened and they started to bring them back, but we're locked in around 4 1/4 now.
But we are now getting to that rather critical point in this race when the riders in this breakaway group are starting to think, right, okay, how am I going to win the stage? How can I get myself away from this group of 18, and how can I rid myself of Peter Sagan, who is the big favourite here, but he just this year has been riding with so much more confidence. In the past, he's got into breakaways like this and everybody has pretty much ridden against him, but he's learned to get over that hump now, and he has the confidence, I think, that little bit of maturity that's come in since he won that World Championships, and he now knows how to control the breakaway group like this. And we talk about Peter Sagan, who has been a professional since 2008, and yet he's still only 26 years of age. I just wonder, looking at the Frenchman there, Samy Dumoulin, I wonder if he's got the ability to hang on over that climb. He's a very good sprinter, Dumoulin, who's actually not had a bad season this year, with 3 victories, including the Grand Prix of Plumelec over towards the edge of Brittany. A tough race that is as well. Finishes over the top of the climb of Plumelec, where the Tour de France has had a number of prologue time trials and also had a number of very difficult finishes. There you get a chance to see the Grand Bassin, and that's right in the middle of Castelnaudry. It was in fact designed by Pierre-Paul Riquet, and it was right at the heart of the Canal du Midi with the construction of the Grand Bassin. It was to store a little bit of extra expanse of water. It's 7 hectares, and it's right between Toulouse and Sète, between the ports.
Very nice little town it is too, Paul, as they continue to go through. And it's, well, they're taking it very seriously back in that peloton now, Paul, because Direct Energy brought all the troops up.
Well, I just question it, Phil, as we get a chance here to look at the Collegiate Church. Again, a magical part of France we're going through here. This is the Collegiate Church of Saint-Michel, built around about 1240. It was originally designed as a fortress temple. Obviously, right in the middle. It was destroyed by the Black Prince and his hordes in 1355.
And that beautiful spire, by the way, houses 35 bells and is one of the largest in France at 50 metres high. Well, for a moment it looked as though they might return, but the gap is now 6:36, and that is an official time gap, so there's no coming back of the peloton today. The man up front, Damiano Caruso, is gaining time at the moment, but he is in the second half of the split. He was 12 minutes behind overnight. The long straight roads, Paul, and we're about 4 kilometres from the climb.
Well, talk about suspense, because I could just keep looking at these. Right, I can't see any sign of weakness in any of the guys that we feel can win the stage. Craig van Avermaet must be feeling very confident after his wearing of the yellow jersey in a stage which Samy Dumoulin has won a stage in the Tour de France before, and he'll be thinking about the possibility of a win too as we get closer down towards the finishing line. Looking a quick look down there as we get a chance to see the beautiful chateau of Pommerade. It's not too far away from the outskirts of the final little town that we're heading into.
It looks as though there's tis a lived-in chateau, this one, as you can see. And are they going to come outside and watch the race go by? They're probably bringing it up to date down there. These are the men now, 7 of them here, trying to decide the day. Very difficult choice. When you get so many riders doing so well on the stage of the Tour de France, it's hard to accept that 6 of them, of course, won't win the stage, because they all deserve it.
Well, I cannot pick a man to win the stage from this group of riders. The fastest man in the group, theoretically, is the man just there on the right-hand side, Michael Matthews. He's wearing an aerodynamic one-piece skin suit to get himself those marginal gains, to try and get himself a little bit quicker in the air. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, I was talking to our Norwegian colleagues about his sprint at the National Championships. They said he led the sprint out there for the last 750 metres. He was so powerful, nobody could come by him. He is a canny rider. But, I mean, we're looking at the world champion, Peter Sagan. He can very often do what we believe is impossible.
Jens Voigt, you're our man. Which one's going to win?
Very often in groups like this, the first who really takes initiative, like as if he mean it, is having the best end for himself. So what we might see is that Orica Greenwich with 3 riders looks unbeatable. They look unbeatable, but maybe they are so focused on only Sagan that Dumoulin, actually Sam Dumoulin, Samuel, might be just slip away and nobody feels responsible to chase him down. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him going off in a minute and people look at each other, go, no, you chase first, no, you chase first, and he goes away and wins.
Well, it's certainly an interesting combination, and it's going to be pretty exciting over these last few kilometres of the day.
Yeah, well, Phil, I would have agreed with Jens 12 months ago, but all of a sudden this year, Peter Sagan just seems to have so much more confidence in himself. And once he sees those little attacks coming, he knows he's not going to get any help from anyone else in the group, so he will take the responsibility of chasing those groups down in person.
Well, he's got rid of the so-called jinx on the World Championship jersey. He'll be going under 10 kilometres, 6 miles to the finish, because Peter's had 7 wins this year. There he is. You can never tell what he's thinking because he never looks around, he never twitches, he just gets on and you just don't know what he's going to do next.
Well, Luke Durr, what a massive crowd at the top of this tiny little climb.
It's enormous. Well, they can't get in the town, the town's too narrow. Sagan takes the points if it mattered. Now then, they've got Peter Sagan on the front and they're not going to go past him. Matthews has had a very good climb. He's kept himself in a perfect position to win this stage.
But it's so difficult to win from a group like this. So bear in mind that the attacks came thick and fast from the very first climb of the day, the Col d'Envalira. And one of the most aggressive riders on the first climb of the day was the man who's in first position still in this leading group, Peter Sagan, the world champion.
Well, he's paying the price for being the world champion and for being one of the most feared riders in the Tour de France. Nobody wants to help him, and they're hoping he's using energy sitting at the front, but you never know with Peter. Still hanging on the back is Daryl Impey, the big workhorse. He's worn the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for the former Orica Green Edge team. Same team, a slightly different sponsor this year. It's now Orica Bike Exchange.
Oh,
big acceleration.
Huge move there by Peter Sagan, just showing the power that he's got, but he's not opening up any daylight between himself and any of the other riders in this group. Now still Orica Bike Exchange, Phil, have the advantage of 2 men around that little left-hand bend. Oof. This is the descent they're starting to line themselves up for.
Well, we get down the descent, we're into the town. It is a sprinter's delight. It's a very long sprinting straight. There's a sort of dog leg right and left, but it's a long way from the finish. The actual line. Sagan, they're not going past him at all. Poor old Peter Sagan. Even Daryl Impey's still holding on despite those 2 attacks. He could even get himself through if it comes to the flatter roads to help leading out Michael Matthews.
Well, when you look at this breakaway group, Phil, you've got to cast your mind back to Richmond, Virginia last year. First in the World Championships was Peter Sagan. Second on that occasion was Michael Matthews. Yep. I wonder if this is going to be a return match of that showdown that went down to the last couple of kilometres of the event.
It might well be another turn of speed. Remember, Sagan is such a talented downhill. He rides mountain bikes as well. And now there's the attack, and that's Bosenhagen. And immediately Sagan switches the road and grabs his slipstream. He's going to have to work for this, and still Michael Matthews waits on his wheel.
Yes, but Peter Sagan there, Phil, just looks so calm. He's responded to every move. Nobody else has responded to all of the moves except the world champion. Every time he sees that acceleration, it's as if he's got a second confidence this year with the fact that he is wearing that very special jersey on his shoulders. World champion.
The Dimension Data rider has been caught, first by Sagan, second by Matthews, third by Grant Avermaet, and then Dumoulin, and sat at the back Daryl Impey. All time to freewheel again. 4.5 kilometres from the finish, that's all. If it comes to a finish shoulder to shoulder, all odds are equal. I've got a feeling that Michael Matthews might win this, but remember, he's been doing altitude training and mountain training, and he himself is the first to admit his sprint isn't quite there yet. We'll see if it is today.
Well, the most experienced rider in the group, Phil, is Samy Dumoulin. He's 35 years of age. He's been a professional since 2002, and he will see this as a magical opportunity to try and outfox everybody else. He'll be attentive right now. He will take the risk of trying to sit at the back and hope this group comes together to the finishing line all together, because somebody will have to lead the sprint out from a fair way out, 400 or 500 metres, and that will put the advantage to Samy Dumoulin. Watch him there in the white jersey and the green shorts, hovering around, placing himself in this group in a position so he won't get caught out if there's a split in the group.
Well, the only riders who never won a stage of the Tour de France in this breakaway are the two riders in blue from Orica Bike Exchange. Unless you count the team time trial at Nice a couple of years ago. And here goes Daryl Impey. He's gone to the right of the road. Now it's up to Sagan again. Sagan quickly trying to get on, but he's having to fight for this one. Matthews holds on to the wheel of the world champion. They're doing exactly the way it should be done. But yes, Sagan is up for it.
3 kilometres to go, Phil. Did you see the confidence, though, of Peter Sagan? He will respond to everything. He knows he's not going to get any help from any quarter in a breakaway situation like this, and he says, right, any move that goes, it's got to be me. I have to nail it back, which is why I think all of a sudden maybe Orica Bike Exchange are not feeling that confident with Michael Matthews, and that's why they're throwing these attacks. If Michael Matthews has got anything in the engine room, he maybe has to take the risk this far out from the finish line to also try and surprise Peter Sagan.
I think Impey is doing everything. He's the perfect teammate here. He's trying to force reactions from everybody. Matthews is really in the armchair here, and he's waiting for his moment. It's a long straight finish. Michael Matthews never has won an individual stage of the Tour de France. Here he goes again, and Sagan this time has seen him coming, and he's accelerating a little bit quicker.
Well, you know, all of a sudden Peter Sagan, you might not have noticed there, he was just about to take on board a little bit of food, and that was the moment when Daryl Impey thought, I've got this, I'll just try and surprise Peter Sagan, but it didn't happen. Sagan is so alert. I tell you, Phil, this is probably one of the most difficult ones to call.
I can't remember we've ever commentated on a sprint like this. It is amazing. And we're waiting for the man that lays down the foundations. Meanwhile, back in the peloton, they're all asleep. 8 minutes 11 seconds now. Let's get back up front. Day off for the yellow jersey. That'll be another day tomorrow for him.
Well, we talked about, Phil, the return match of the World Championships between Peter Sagan and between Michael Matthews. What about the return of the sprint last year when we went to the finish in Rodez between Greg Van Avermaet and Peter Sagan? That was a very difficult uphill finish, and the man wearing number 98, well, he came out on top on that occasion.
And he's done nothing. He's watched everybody so far. He's gambling on the others' tactics. And watch out for Greg Van Avermaet. He is a very strong rider on brilliant form. Remember, 3 days in the lead in this race, and had an excellent win on the lower mountains when we started on day 4 of the Tour. There he is, waiting. I would certainly not write him off pulling out the big one.
Well, he's also taken up last position in this group, and the reason for that is so he can keep a very close eye on everybody else. If he starts to see it's looking dangerous and a move comes, he'll be right on top of it. He moves back up to the wheel there of Samy Dumoulin, the diminutive French sprinter there, and there is the final kilometre, and still we can't put a name onto the man who's going to be the fastest out of this group.
That was a perfect finish by Orica Bike Exchange, and in particular by Michael Matthews.
Well, you talk about a nail-biter, and by the way, you might not have seen the average speed of the stage there, Phil. 45 kilometres an hour. Orica Bike Exchange, they put themselves right up there. Peter Sagan, well, he tried everything, but he was up against a team that did the job. And what about this man coming into the finishing line now? Durbridge, a smile all over his face, because he knows that having 3 men in that breakaway, they had to win the stage this afternoon, and he knows that he was part of doing the job this afternoon.
He'll be delighted when he hears the news as he comes up here. He's waiting to smile or cry, doesn't know quite what it is yet. Now he smiles, somebody's just told him. Luke Durbridge there, and the peloton still heading home. It'll be a while as we see there Fabian Cancellara at the front.
Well, that is the moment. As you can see, Luke Durbridge knows what has happened on the day, that his team Orica Bike Exchange have got themselves the victory that they were looking for. The main field chased for an awful long time. I mean, on the descent of the Col d'Envalira, they came back to 30 seconds from the leading group of riders, but then eventually it opened out and it started to stretch. It came back to 3.5 minutes, but I think there just wasn't the firepower, there wasn't the will to organise the chase behind in the peloton, knowing that they've got a lot of hard races, a lot of strategic days on the horizon in this next week of the race. The Mont Ventoux beckons for the men who want to win this race overall. The 37.5 kilometre individual time trial, and for the sprinters, they probably feel a little bit more confident that tomorrow is the sort of day that suits them an awful lot better, because tomorrow we go into a sprinter's delight into the town of Montpellier.
But there's never a day where you can rest if you're one of the contenders for yellow. Michael Valgren is the rider from Tinkoff, having a little bit of fun to win the Spunch Sprint. Or it might have been Edouard Turns or Jesper Sturben from Trek Segafredo. An average speed of 45 kilometres per hour. Here's the sprint. And Michael Matthews really had time to celebrate. Peter Sagan up in a second. Edvald Boasson-Hagen in third. Starting from the historic city of Carcassonne, the destination is Montpellier, a happy hunting ground for the sprinters. But what looks like a simple day on paper could prove to be the most complicated of the race. And this is what confronts them as they make their way on stage 11 from Carcassonne to Montpellier. It's a relatively flat stage, just 2 Category 4 climbs early on, the usual intermediate sprint, but the main challenge today will be the expected crosswinds. Just 162 kilometres, it's sure to be a fast one. Well, this is the beautiful walled city of Carcassonne hosting the stage start today. The first castle was built here back in 1150. It is steeped in history. Peloton rolling away, and at the front, the yellow jersey, as always, Chris Froome, with the white jersey of Adam Yates sitting right behind him. The Kiwi in the red colours, Greg Henderson, paying very close attention to the front. He has a big role to play today in supporting Andre Greipel to see whether the German national champion can get his first win this year after 4 wins last year. Green jersey with Peter Sagan, and congratulations from Andre Greipel. This is the situation of the race. 2 riders have managed to break away with a 2-minute and 21-second lead. Lee Howard in the white colours, along with the French national champion Arthur Vichot. Some encouragement between the two, and they are all smiles. This is the safest place to be. Montpellier is the destination. What a great destination it is for the South Africans. In 2007, coming into Montpellier, the race was blown apart in similar conditions to today, but it was Robbie Hunter who got the win, riding for the Barlow World Team in the red colours. The first win by a South African on an individual road stage at the Tour de France. And then it was 6 years later, 2013, Andre Greipel was the stage winner, but Daryl Impey took the yellow jersey off the shoulders of his teammate Simon Gerrans to become the first South African to wear the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. It's a crash back in the main peloton, and Thibaut Pinot is at the bottom of it. Thibaut Pinot, the leader of the King of the Mountains classification. His teammates in the white colours of FDJ, they're waiting for him. There's also a rider down there from Lotto, NL Jumbo. It looks like it could be George Bennett. He doesn't look good. George Bennett has fallen a long way down that ditch. Race medical support to stay with him, and that will just increase the tension within the peloton today. Here's another look at it. And there is Bennett over the top. Next down, it is Thibaut Pinot in the polka dot jersey. George Bennett claws his way up out of the ditch. He's accustomed to climbing, but not that sort of climbing. 7th place on the stage in Andorra. We saw him the day before that do a lot of work for his teammate Wilco Kelderman. These are the sort of days that George Bennett would be the first to admit that he really doesn't like. He needs to get through it because the team have got high hopes for him once we reach the Alps. Now the chase is on for Thibaut Pinot, who yesterday said he didn't feel too well after the rest day. His teammate Arthur Vichot is the rider in the breakaway, the French national champion, riding alongside Lee Howard. The majority of the rest of the team are back there supporting him. You will see lots of vineyards today. Red wine and rosé is the predominant variety that we see down in this part of the world. The warm climate in the south of the country. Just a small amount of white wine production down here. And you can already see the wind rolling through the vineyard. That's an indication as to what is to come on the stage today. Some riders making their way back after being caught behind the fall. Thibaut Pinot has targeted tomorrow's stage, so we'll be wanting to get through today as comfortably as possible. And this is anything but a good start. It is stating the obvious, but it needed to be stated. He sits on the wheel of Reichenbach. William Bonnet is there with him. He's number 122. He's the captain on the road, number 122 for FDJ. And that's Laurens ten Dam in the white and black colours of Giant Alpecin, who famously, when he was in the Rabobank colours, he fell heavily on his face and he had a blood nose, he had skin off everywhere, and he was all taped up looking like a mummy. Heaven knows how he was able to breathe on that occasion, but he fought his way through and made it all the way to Paris. What a day of celebration they had yesterday, with Michael Matthews getting his win. And Michael Matthews starting to concede that he perhaps was losing faith in his own ability to be able to win a stage at this year's tour, and was on the brink of abandoning the race. And he said the monkey's off the back, he'll be full of confidence. For Laurens ten Dam at the back of the group and Christopher Juul Jensen in second last position, they'll be very pleased that they've got Thibaut Pinot for company, as he's got all his teammates doing the work, and those two at the back can just follow the wheels. Surely they'll be able to return. It just might take a while. The Chateau de Malazan-Minois that we're now getting a chance to look at, an old Renaissance chateau that dates from back in the 15th century. It was actually brought by the municipality back in 1986. It's been restored, and there looks as if there's some restoration work going on at the moment, and it does host quite a bit of cultural activities, music festivals and so on in this small little village. One for the kids, courtesy of Lee Howard. Another warm day, just in the mid-20s, but it is one of those days where it feels a lot hotter than what the mercury tells us that it actually is. And the dry wind adds to it. There will be a lot of tension. This will be the most stressful stage of this year's race. Good to see the Welsh flag on the side of the road. Two riders from Wales in the race who will play an important role in today's stage. Luke Rowe and Geraint Thomas. Making their way through the town of Siras now. This is Matthias Frank at the back of the group. Matthias Frank sitting in second last position from IM Cycling. He was involved in another one of those falls and having a few problems, but he's benefiting from the Thibaut Pinot crash as well, just like Christopher Juul Jensen and Laurens ten Dam, making the most of the work being done by FDJ. It gets hectic in amongst the team cars, not just for the riders. Difficult to ride the motorbike through there without camera. Hopefully everybody stays safe. This is Maciej Bodnar out the front for Tinkoff. Peter Sagan returns to the green jersey. And Govicioso is the rider in the red colours from Katusha. They're fighting on two fronts today. One to try and win the stage with Alexander Kristoff. I was almost going to go elsewhere. Alexander Kristoff is their chance to win the stage today. But they're also wanting to look after Joaquim Rodriguez. Rodriguez is in 5th spot overall, just 37 seconds behind. And this will be his last Tour de France, and he wants a high placing overall. This is Jurgen van den Broek, one of the teammates of Joaquim Rodriguez. 20th position in the general classification at 5 minutes and 33 seconds. He's twice finished in the top 5 in the Tour de France, Jurgen van den Broek, so he'll be an important man for Joaquim Rodriguez tomorrow to Mont Ventoux, and then in the final week through the Alps and into Switzerland. And he just missed the sticky bidden. I'm sure that will come back to him. FDJ, they've almost returned. I'm sure they wish they were driving or racing in New Zealand or Australia or the United Kingdom for that matter, with the cars on the other side of the road, as then they would have been able to go up the right side, and that would have offered them just a little bit of protection from the wind that is coming from left to right. The Côte de Minerve is the first of 2 Category 4 climbs on today's stage. 2.4 kilometres in length with an average grain of 5.4%. Howard and Vichot are almost at the base of it. Eyes Frank at the back of the group from IM Cycling. 8th overall last year, the man in the white colours wearing number 71. He's a lot further back this year, sitting in 25th position. He's now declared that he's no longer worried about where he finishes overall. He's hunting for a stage. Thibaut Pinot returns. One of the days he doesn't like. The 2 leaders start this Category 4 climb. 1 point available in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. Thibaut Pinot, the leader of that classification, but he's not worried about it. And tomorrow, the 14th of July, the day of celebration, Bastille Day for the French. And Thibaut Pinot has made it pretty clear he wants to get in the break. But on the eve of Bastille Day, it is the French national champion. Nice big giraffe to welcome people into this chateau. The giraffe stands at some 4 metres tall. This is a beautiful looking building with the vines all across the walls. It's a private chateau. It's got some 7 hectares of vineyards surrounding it. And we saw that entrance with the giraffe that welcomes people when they do arrive here. Beautifully manicured gardens. And nice to see some shade to be able to sit out in the courtyard there and enjoy the warm summer months of July and August. June wasn't too warm in France. Not this year anyway.
Seberg, a couple other teammates, and look at the back of the peloton. It splits immediately. Here, half a dozen riders already dropped. Panic stations now, all round.
It was stage 13 of the Tour de France in 2013 where a move like this happened with 90 kilometres to go, and the Movistar team got caught on the back foot. Valverde lost a huge chunk of time, and Team Sky also lost a little bit of time. The yellow jersey is fighting to make sure he stays near the front.
He was quite a way back in about 35th wheel, and the telling thing was he wasn't surrounded by his own teammates. One Team Sky rider out to the left trying to form what you call another echelon to give some shelter and call one of his other teammates across, get themselves grouped back together and get Chris Froome to the start front as this race is starting to split up.
Well, the vineyard is not the position that we want to be in now. We want to be down in amongst the race. Matteo Tusato is the man who started it all. Roman Kreuziger now comes through to the front, and this is good for his position in the overall standings, but more importantly for them, it's about a stage win for Sagan. It's splintering.
This is about another 50 or 60 riders off the back, and this area, and you look at the trees, it's fairly sheltered. It's not that windy compared to the rest of the course. Tinkoff have already started proceedings, and the gap is really starting to drop. That 3:45, it's not that anymore. 3:18 and dropping like a stone.
But how quickly did that happen? The chalkboard compared to the GPS. Sagan goes to the front and calls it off.
They've realised now as they come into this forested area, the road is twisted and turned. There's not enough wind to continue and do the damage that they were hoping for. But now Ethics Quickstep along with BMC have decided we've got to keep this going because we've lost half of the bunch. And this sort of shelter is not going to last long either. As soon as they come out of this area, they'll get hit again. Wind from the left.
And at this point, because of the gaps that have opened up, if somebody in that front group has a mechanical problem, like the rear wheel puncher we saw for Richie Porte on stage 2, their team car is a long way behind. So having a teammate alongside you is crucial.
Absolutely, because there's not even a neutral spares car in between. Pretty soon, there's always one that drives in front of the peloton. They will pull over, let that group go past and get in behind, because that's a moment that's also very dangerous for any contender, be it for the stage or for the overall.
Doesn't want the drink just as yet. Arthur Visho now speaking to the sports director from IM Cycling. The team of Lee Howard.
They'll be getting the bad news.
Yes. Under 3 minutes. How quickly has that happened?
It started, like we said, if it really starts in earnest in a very windy section, they would close that gap down in about 6 kilometres time, possibly even less. The speed differential is that high.
Early in the stage, Visho and Howard had a chatty, conversational, happy look about them. That was a very serious looking Arthur Visho. And when you can see the backs of the leaves on the trees, the tailwind, very quick sector.
So we said there was a little change in direction. Tinkoff started the move. They split the peloton. Then the road was winding a bit. They're now into a tailwind section. Won't be long before the road twists and turns again. Puts things back on the side of the road. Nervous moments. But fun to call.
Samuel Dumoulin is in this second group. George Bennett has also missed the split. Not that that's of any concern to George Bennett. He's a rider that's waiting to get into the breakaway in the mountains. Thibaut Pinot has also missed the split. It doesn't really come as a surprise. He's already had a fall today, Thibaut Pinot. He's been on the back foot right from the very start. Jürgen van den Broek is here. Shane Archbold in the black colours, the flying mullet. Well, he's not flying this afternoon.
So, Matt, Tinkoff have already made the first attack that we've seen of any team today. Few other teams willing to get amongst the action, like Ethics Quickstep, for Dan Martin to protect him, and also for Marcel Kittel looking for a sprint win. But the bunch is not even at the feed zone yet. As we see here, Wilco Kelderman has been left behind, but he's making his way back through the team cars. A number of other riders doing the same. He want to get on very quickly, get himself up to the front of the peloton before they hit the feed. It's normally not done to attack through the feed, but when the wind's like this, it's just a case of staying at the front, pushes the pace. I'm holding my breath for the feed zone because that is often the scene of carnage.
We spoke earlier about the climbers from Sky being at the front, using them early. That was Vasil Kirienka that's now gone to the front for Team Sky. The strong men for the flat, windy lands have come forward, Howard and Visho. What was 5, it now becomes 2:05. The gap is evaporating under the southern sun of France. Nice picnic on the side of the road, but keep off the road because the peloton will be using every millimetre. They'll be trimming the edge on the right-hand side with the wind coming from the left.
Yep, Council will not need to go along with the whippersnippers on the right-hand side of the road for a little while to come yet. And the further this race goes, the barer it will get on the right-hand side.
Well, Wilco Kelderman, the rider in the yellow colours that we saw from Lotto NL Jumbo, who was caught off the back, he was their hope for the overall standings, looking for a top 10 finish. He's currently 19th, 5.5 minutes down. But then he also said recently, maybe I need to lose more time to get some freedom in the mountains. This is a large portion of the FDJ team doing the chasing for Thibaut Pinot. And one rider in that group from the Movistar team, and the rider that is there, it looks like Jesus Herrada. So that's good news for Movistar. I would have been concerned for Nairo Quintana if it was Imanol Iverti, who's the one man that can protect Nairo Quintana on days like this.
Also a lot of riders there from the Bora Argon 18 team. Shane Archibald, we always spot him, the flying mullet. So they've also been caught out along with a lot of riders, the teammates of Lee Howard from IM Cycling. There's Pozzovivo on the left of screen from AG2R, also been left behind. Another Movistar team rider.
Well, there are 4 riders in that group from AG2R Le Mondial, the teammates of Romain Bardet. Romain Bardet is vulnerable today. Alex Howes and Lawson Craddock in the green colours of Cannondale Drapac.
Who else was caught out in that group from BMC was Damiano Caruso in the breakaway yesterday. Took a lot of time back, moved up to 21st overall in GC, but now losing time again. Look at the battle for the front of the peloton as they're now just 1 kilometre from the feed zone. Sky, Etix, Quickstep, Tinkoff, they're the ones in control at the moment. Got to get into this feed zone, and don't be surprised, a lot of guys will just ride straight through and not even take anything, because grabbing a bag at the speeds they'll be travelling at and the risk of coming off, or more importantly losing position, because that's going to be just as bad as coming off.
You can see some real tension at the front as they are approaching the feed zone. This will be one of the quickest takeaways you'll ever collect in your life, or it will be no extra fries with that, please. I'm going straight through. Just give me a drink from the team car. That will be enough.
Guys back here, back of the peloton, might be thinking, great, I'm back in the bunch. Could be very short-lived, because they may be able to see the front, but as soon as they hit a crosswind, the front of the peloton gets a very long way away.
Very quickly. 190 riders strung out in single file is a long way. And if it splits 2, 3, 15 places in front of you, you've got no hope of bridging the gap. Down to 2 minutes. Well, 1:58. The conversation starts again between Lee Howard and Arthur Vichot. And I imagine the question is, what do we do now? Just keep doing what you're doing. Wait to see what the reaction is from the main field.
And look at that strung out second bunch trying to chase their way back onto the peloton. And at the moment, everybody's still in that tailwind section for another couple of kilometres. Merville, that village, comes at 78 kilometres to go. So another 1.5 kilometres until they get to Merville. From there, the road hooks back to the left a little bit more. 1.5 kilometres. This group will just make contact, not even have time to get themselves up to the front, when there will be a bit of a direction change. Then we'll see if Tinkoff, Etix, Quickstep are prepared to go on with what they started a few minutes ago in the last crosswind.
Making their way across this old bridge that was built in 1893. It's now continuing to serve the Tour de France. A beautiful river that they go over the top of that stretches some 136 kilometres. There's 78 to go on the stage today, and look at the intensity within this group.
Well, this is that chase group, Matt. A lot of riders from FDJ, Bora Argon 18, along with IM Cycling, a couple of riders from Movistar. Sergio Pols just going through the picture there from Dimension Data. Shane Archibald, Vincenzo Nibali, Thomas Vauclair there as well, Sylvain Chavanel.
Danny Marino from Movistar. There's Domenico Pozzovivo. Wilco Kelderman was there. George Bennett has just gone through in yellow.
Tom Dumoulin just rode through the picture, the winner at Andorra Arcalis. Steve Cummings here at the back. Jurgen Roulans? No, Tony Galopin. Daryl Impey and Ruben Plaza. Well, just like Michael Matthews, Daryl Impey can be forgiven for feeling his legs not quite there for him today after a day like yesterday.
How close was that group to actually making contact? The neutral vehicles got out of the way, but they have not connected yet.
And they'll have trouble doing so, because in the front, everyone up there with the race radio will have heard the road changes direction. You're going more to the left, get ready for more crosswind. They're all jostling for position to be at the front of the peloton. This bunch was almost there, but the road and the wind is going to decide otherwise.
It's never over until it's over. And you can see in particular 3 teams working well together. FDJ in the white and blue colours, IM Cycling in the white and navy blue colours, and then the black of Bora Argon 18. And the yellow colours with Lotto NL Jumbo, they'll want to close it down because they're hoping to protect Wilco Kelderman. This is Michael Matthews in amongst the team cars. Simon Geschke for company from Giant Alpecin. Lawson Craddock along with Alex Howes are also there. And the rider from the red colours of Cofidis is Arno Jennison, who injured his wrist in the first stage. 9 apartments throughout the centuries. Some of it has obviously collapsed, but you can see the skylights in there still going strong under private ownership.
And Matt, you can see from our 2 riders out the front, look where Vichot is sitting now in relation to Lee Howard. He's not sitting behind him in the wheel, so it's going to be great to get a shot of the peloton, because that staggered formation, here it's very easy to get the sit on one guy, no fighting for position. Back in the bunch, it's going to be a completely different story.
He's got his helicopter pilot's licence, Lee Howard, so he knows all about reading wind. And if you're a sailor, that would serve you well to be able to contend with echelons. The rules are pretty much the same. As you can see, the way Arthur Vichot is overlapping the wheel of Lee Howard and getting that little bit of extra protection.
Well, that is Meurville-les-Béziers,
which comes from the Latin plural of the old walls.
And it's as they ride out of the village here that they're going to get hit with that crosswind that we just saw Lee Howard and Arthur Vichot in. I can hardly wait.
You just want to get out of town on the road again, don't you? And you can see it already starting to spark up. And it is the big strong men from Trek Segafredo. This is Jesper Stuyven now who goes to the front. The red colours from BMC, that's Greg Van Avermaet. Fabian Cancellara, he's the man who was dictating terms, the captain of the peloton. Reinhard Jensi van Rensburg was there for Dimension Data. This is at the back of the peloton. Thomas Voeckler craning his neck. Go gadget neck, Thomas Voeckler, to see that little bit of road in front of him.
Well, to see the bunch soon, he's going to really be testing his eyesight, because that's not the position you want to be in if you want to stay with the bunch. Vauclair won't be there for long. Is all happening at the front. We saw Tinkoff the first ones to start, then Etixx Quick-Step getting up there. Guys yelling at each other here as they're going out the back, fighting for survival. This is still the group of Matthews.
This is behind that group that we're just looking at, and at 74 kilometres to go, these riders are in serious risk of being eliminated today, of being outside the time cutoff, because there won't be a lot of latitude given, and now the pressure is really on. The race is starting to fall apart. This is Albert Timmer at the back for the Giant Alpecin team. He loses contact, and now it's in 1, 2, 3, 4 distinct groups. It's soon to be 5.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, that is what you call an echelon. That left to right staggered formation. They're all trying to find shelter and eventually run out of road. And like that Giant Alpecin rider, who was John Degenkolb, you get shot out the back and it just splits and splits and splits again. And look at the front of the race. Riders scrambling, trying to make a formation, trying to get organised to stay in touch. But another big group going off the back of that peloton now. And you look at the back of that really tightly bunched unit at the front. The last couple of riders right on the edge of the road.
It reminds me of the stage at Le Grand Mot when the HDC team in 2009 went to the front. Cavendish won the stage. Contador was caught behind the split. His teammate, Lance Armstrong, being his teammate, was in that front group, and the race really started to blow up. It's a very similar scenario to what we saw then in 2009, but this is a lot further from home. Some big damage can be done this afternoon on the road to Montpellier.
All these riders who have just been caught out and been shot off the back of the bunch will now get another opportunity to come back. You see them have just turned to the right. That's that point I said it was about a 4.5 kilometre section of crosswind, really bad, and then it turned, gave them a bit more crosswind. It might give them a little chance, but this road's constantly left and right.
And look at the ones at the tail whip just dangling. This is Ian Stannard, followed by Luke Rowe. It's then Chris Froome, Bernard Eisel, Mark Cavendish. Burkhardt comes through with the moustache. Van Avermaet from BMC.
hardly surprising to see the ex-Sky riders from a couple of years ago, Eisel and Cavendish, on the back of the Sky train. You know they're going to do absolutely everything to get Chris Froome up there. It's the place to be. They're also missing Renshaw today, so they need everything they can get.
Going past this group just a little bit too quickly, but main contingent of Bora Argon 18.
It was virtually the same group we saw before. They just got back on. No sooner they got back on, they turned into a crosswind, straight back off the back again, as now Astana come to the front, and they're working for Fabio Aru. Vincenzo Nibali, he has not missed the split. He's also right up the front as they come into the town here of Saint-Genis-de-Fondetti, and a little bit of shelter.
Oh, it's got 3 frogs on its coat of arms here, and they're going to have to get a hop along to stay at the front.
One I saw trying to do that looked to me to be Thibaut Pinot, who was trying to chase across that little gap behind our main peloton. As they come back out of town, away from all those buildings, it's going to be all on again.
You look at the profile stage for the sprinters. It'll be a procession chasing the breakaway. But then you look at the history of stages into Montpellier, and that is never the case.
We woke up this morning, we saw the wind, we said this stage is going to be on. This is going to be an unbelievable stage to watch. But there was so much wind, it scared them out of it. It was like they were afraid to race until Tinkoff started it. Once it starts on a stage like this, it doesn't stop anymore.
Astana now coming to the front. That's Andrei Grivko, the 5-time Ukrainian time trial champion. This is down near the back of the peloton. And the rider in the Lamprey colours that you can see at the rear end, that's Jan Polenk. But for Lamprey, they just want to see number 157, Louis Meintjes, second in the race for the white jersey, up near the fronts. Lee Howard and Arthur Visho, there's just neutral service behind them now. Their advantage is down to just 28 seconds. It continues to splinter. BMC colours, the red with the yellow helmets on, the leaders of the team's classification, and that Slovakian flag, it is a strong tailwind at this point, which makes it even harder to chase and encourages more aggression at the fronts. Robbie, stop smiling. You're enjoying this.
In a way, I'm enjoying seeing the action. I'm also enjoying the fact that I'm not out there trying to stay in that front bunch, because I just know how difficult it is. So many riders just battling as hard as they possibly can, and it's doing them no good. They're just flapping in the breeze and getting dropped, just hoping for a little change in direction, a little hold up in the pace of the front peloton, that they can just get back on and survive a little bit longer. And I'm trying to spot. Is that Louis Meintjes there? It is leading the chase of that group from Lamprey, in trouble.
So that highlights what we've spoken about today, about his lack of team support. And as soon as he makes contact with the back, he cannot rest. He has to go to the left-hand side of the road, around the outside, in the wind, and plonk himself at the front of the race somehow.
That is one of the hardest things to do. It's one thing about getting to the back of that leading group, but having the power to go up and around in the wind. You can't creep up the right-hand gutter. You won't get it. You get put off the road or just get completely blocked. You've got to be up the wrong side in the wind. That's when you need a teammate. And even on the left-hand side, there's hardly room to do it. Look at the police motorbike making his way up the side of the peloton. There'll be riders trying to follow him through. He'll be beeping his horn, trying to get the riders to move over a bit. And smart riders will try and follow that, improve their position. You've got to use everything you get your hands on.
And the one that tried to was Wilco Kelderman, the Dutchman. And the Dutch, rightly so, have a reputation for being amongst the smartest tactically, but not even the police motorbike could fit past. 3 riders at the back from Lamprey, but it's not Louis Meintjes.
I saw Greg Henderson there at the back, so he's a key pilot for Andre Greipel and the rest of the Lotto Soudal team. So down the back where he is now, if they turn into... he's in real danger of not seeing them until the team bus after the stage.
How did you go, Andre? I was wondering where you were, Greg.
Not over yet, and if anyone can find their way through a peloton, it's Greg Henderson. He's an absolute specialist, but it's the moment now to already be at the front. You need to save all your energy, get there without using any, and then be able to react to the accelerations, which are bound to come. They're going to come one after the other as teams almost take turns at trying to ride each other out of this race.
Lee Howard and Arthur Visho, it's all been happening behind them. Doesn't seem that long ago that they had a 5-minute advantage.
The speed differential, and everyone will know, oh, these guys will be in the break. Don't get behind them, because if it goes on the side of the road, they're fatigued. They're the ones who are going to lose the wheel in front of us. So everybody's fighting to get back around. And look at that from Tinkoff in the middle in the bright yellow.
Did you see the hand signal from Luke Rowe? Roll through, let's get working.
Fabian Cancellara in the distance there, trying to get back up, just about 15 wheels back on the right-hand side, bringing his teammates to the front.
Maciej Bodnar was the rider from Tinkoff. Not even the official race vehicles can get through. There is no room to move.
And we see it again, those groups starting to form all over again. Same riders we've seen before. That's Samuel Dumoulin who was in the break yesterday. Steve Cummings back here. So the same riders, they get back to the back of the peloton. But of course, they're the first ones to get shelled out the back when the pace goes back on.
In the red, Tony Galopin from the breakaway yesterday. Antoine Duchesne, the Canadian from Direct Energy. This is the way to get across. Open up the throttle. Even then it takes a while. 60 plus kilometres per hour in these cross tailwind sectors. 60 kilometres to go. It'll all happen very, very quickly. Benetti at the back of this group for Bora Argon 18. He just wants to get to the hotel.
These are also very dangerous moments when they go from the open road in the crosswinds and they hit these small villages, road furniture, traffic islands, that sort of thing. The guys are concentrating so hard, but riding so hard that you start getting fatigued. Concentration levels drop. Suddenly you're looking for shelter. You don't see the traffic island. It's when accidents happen, and that's why these stages are also so dangerous, not just the wind. Mark Cavendish is up there with Bernard Eisel, being piloted perfectly. And now cooperation amongst opposing teams. NL Jumbo, Tinkoff up there with Team Sky. Dimension Data, Cavendish and Eisel just sitting in there.
And Peter Sagan so comfortable, he's taking a drink of water. Mark Cavendish slips in behind Team Sky. Chris Froome, to stay safe, even the yellow jersey is coming to the front. This is a rarity. That shows how concerned he is about how dangerous it is. And the white jersey, Adam Yates, going around the outside in the wind.
That is a massive sign. Chris Froome coming through and doing a turn himself and telling that Adam Yates was having to go himself. But at a certain moment, you've got to see the danger. You've got to react. You can't wait and say, oh, excuse me, teammate, do you think you can come up? Too late. Go. When you see Chris Froome hit the wind, it's time to hit the wind yourself.
He races with great instinct, Adam Yates, and he was a good track cyclist as a junior, as was his twin brother Simon.
Looks like they're just hitting a section where there's less advantage to be riding at the front, so a little bit of a, no, it's not a truce, just a little bit of a pause until they hit the next section. It's Marcus Burkhardt in the red with the yellow helmet from Team BMC getting himself up to the front and then starting to look around and say, where is Richie Porte? And I would say now there's about 75 riders left in the front group and the rest back here chasing again. Over in there from the Trek Segafredo team, still at the back of that front peloton.
Who after yesterday's stage, he said, strong enough to get in a breakaway like that. Jesper, you're strong enough. You just missed it yesterday. You almost won stage 2, and he's been causing problems at the front today.
Yeah, we see a group making their way back together, but this is not the front. This is the group of Thibaut Pinot just here. Another two groups in front of them have melted together, but they're still quite a way off that lead group. They're almost a minute behind the front of the race.
Allegan Duvant, the town they're making their way through. The yellow colours of George Bennett. One of the first to fall. There's another fall. Rafał Majka has gone down. That's Rafał Majka, the Polish national champion. This is right at the front of the race too. And it's a Movistar rider. It's not Nairo Quintana. It looks like Winner Anacona. It is Winner Anacona who's gone down for Movistar. So it was a Colombian on Movistar, but not Nairo Quintana.
And that was right in the front of that leading peloton. And now look at the long line, because all those riders on the brakes trying to swerve around and just getting themselves back into the bunch, full sprint and panic to get back up there. Luckily for them, the direction of the road has got them riding in a tailwind at the moment. Not that panic of the crosswind, a bit of an easier return. But the guys who have crashed, that'll be it for today. They'll be back in one of those groups behind them.
One BMC rider went down. It was Damiano Caruso. Gatto and Mike are the two riders who went down for Tinkoff. Winner Anacona, the rider that fell from Movistar. Pierre Roland now coming through to the front in the green colours of Cannondale Drapac. Behind him is Alejandro Valverde. 5 kilometres to the intermediate sprint. Peter Sagan for the sprint. May as well pick up another 20 points.
He'll be looking to take some easy points without doing a full sprint. We'll see if Mark Cavendish is really that interested in it or thinking more about a 4th stage win in this tour. So we see Movistar moving up the left-hand side of the bunch for Nairo Quintana. And in a moment, this road starts to swing back slightly to the right again, which will start to change that wind direction for them.
Valverde sitting in second position from the... This is TJ Van Garderen at the back of this group. Marcus Burkhardt is the rider that he's got with him. This is the front group because Arthur Vichot is in here. They're now taking Van Garderen around the outside. Chimolay calling for a drink, neutral service.
This is Albacini at the back of the group for Orica Bike Exchange.
And Van Garderen very quickly being taken to the front by Marcus Burkhardt on the left-hand side of the road. Right-hand turn. A medium strip that reminds me of stage 1 and the crash with Alberto Contador. We don't want to see any more crashes. A drink of wine might be required tonight to settle the nerves before going to bed.
A very different shape to the groups. Front group, more compact, bit more relaxed, catching their breath, getting ready for the next section. This group, single file, desperate to get back. It's Thibaut Pinot and the other riders we saw a moment back together, 3 groups. And FDJ with a lot of work to do.
Heading for the banner here, we're going to see the sprints. This will be the kilometre to go as the riders go underneath. And now if we can get back up to the front there with our cameras, they've done an incredible peloton which has been breaking up every opportunity with the wind. This is a chase group here, a Française des Jeux, trying once again to bring Thibaut Pinot back up to the pack.
Yeah, well, they're hovering at around about 46 seconds, but there are further groups. The wind is again, Phil, you've just got to be attentive. You've got to be so attentive, so careful coming into these corners, because bear in mind, on these flatter stages, unlike the mountain stages where the teams go and have a reconnaissance, they don't know what they're going into sometimes into these corners. On the front of this field now, it's Ethics Quickstep trying to lead the sprint out for Marcel Kittel, but in the green jersey, hovering there is Peter Sagan, and on his wheel, it's Mark Cavendish.
Well, the sprinters are having a bit of a rehearsal here for their journey into Montpellier, which is still 49 kilometres away. Marcel Kittel is 3rd overall in this competition as he tries to take the points, and he gets them ahead of Sagan and Cavendish over the line.
Well, 49 kilometres to go now, Phil. That's just about 30 miles of racing, but obviously, as you can see, the riders who sit 1st, 2nd and 3rd overall in that competition are very attentive. This is the moment when Marcel Kittel opens up the sprinter, probably just trying the legs, trying to blow out the cobwebs. Sagan cruises across the line in the slipstream there for 2nd position, and Mark Cavendish in 3rd.
Yeah, coming off that bend at 50 metres to go caught Mark out, I think. He suddenly saw the line, it was all too late. The top 3 sprinters in the green jersey competition crossed that line, slightly different order but the same 3 names. Wow, that was a really great sprint. Pézenas is where we are, 52 seconds back to the Pinot peloton as we pass around the collegiate here of Saint-Jean.
Well, there's the next group, and what a big group it is as well. They're looking at around about 50 seconds, but I keep looking across at the map because that's the important thing, and all of the team managers in the cars behind today will be doing exactly the same thing, checking out the map, looking at the change of direction of the road, because that change of direction is associated with the change of wind direction against the peloton. Having gone through this small town now of Pézenas, once they go out of town, they will turn towards the north, and then they will turn now to the east once again.
Well, I've just heard that poor old Tommy Vukler has got a rear wheel flat.
Yeah,
I haven't got any pictures of that just yet. We're too busy showing this lovely, I don't know what it is really. Is this the Collegiate of Saint-Jean?
Yep, looks very much like the Collegiate Church of Saint-Jean, built in 1740. There's quite a collection of furnishings and a bell in there dating back to 1597. There's also a magnificent organ as well, not too far away from the banks of the River Hérault.
Yes, Marcel Pagnol, the great author, once wrote, if Jean-Baptiste Poquelin was born in Paris, then Molière was born here in Pézenas. Well, there's the peloton, and again Sky controlling this race in the front. Ethics have done their job. Julien Alaphilippe is the rider there at present. Astana are here to keep Arus safe, and I can see now that Mark Cavendish is going to rely a little bit on Edvald Boasson today in that Norwegian champions jersey, because don't forget Cavendish has lost his lead out man, the Australian from Bathurst in New South Wales, Mark Renshaw, who left the race with sickness.
Yes, but he can also count on Bernie Eisel. Lots of panic at the back as riders drop back there. That's Bernie Eisel, in fact, the rider we were just talking about, Phil, for Dimension Data. He was going back to that motorbike that carries drinks for all of the riders. Dimension Data riders topped up with fluids on this. It's a pretty hot day actually, with the temperature creeping up to around about the 30 degrees Celsius mark, but cooled by this violent wind, which we've seen speeds of up to 35 miles an hour.
The wind that's blowing today is called the Tramontana, and it blows across the country, and as you can see, it's really hurting the race. The riders were expecting this wind. When you race to Montpellier, you always expect the wind, but it has been getting stronger yesterday, even stronger today, and they're talking of major winds on Mont Ventoux tomorrow, so we can expect a really tough ride up the Giant of Provence.
Well, as we look back there, you get a chance to see the gap. That gap is hovering around about the 1 minute mark. I would think the only way they're going to get back into contact with the front end of this race this afternoon is if there is a slowing down in the front peloton. But for the moment, it doesn't seem as if they want to. They've still got this pace being made by the teams of the overall contenders. Sky never far away, and it's put Thibaut Pinot on the back foot. I don't think it's that important for Thibaut Pinot today. He's lost too much time in the overall standings to consider a podium finish in this year's Tour de France, but of course he does have the pride of being the leader in the King of the Mountains competition.
Well, the strong men have got command at the front here at the moment, and I have to say I've been very impressed by the riding of Mark Cavendish. He's never lost position throughout. For Team Dimension Data, you know, the Africans, South Africans in particular, have claimed Montpellier these last few years. The South African Robbie Hunter got the first stage win for his country here back in 07, and a couple of years ago the yellow jersey was worn by Daniel Impey, first South African to wear the maillot jaune. So, well, we can't call Cavendish South African, but he rides for an African team.
And certainly Dimension Data, presented by Qhubeka, has certainly represented the continent over the last few years, and Mark Cavendish, for one, Phil, really has adopted the spirit of the team, which is basically pretty much to try and get kids onto bikes throughout the continent of Africa. Every bike race they go to, they've got this goal, and that's to try and get 5,000 bicycles into children, into the townships and across South Africa. And so far they're doing a pretty good job here, but now they're getting ready, Phil, for the change in direction. Look at this, the change in attitude. You can see the speed. All of a sudden it ramps up 5-10 kilometers an hour,
and it is always Tinkoff that starts it for Peter Sagan. They've just hit the front again, but there's plenty of people willing to help. Look on the left here now, look, Rowe has started to drive for Chris Froome's team.
Well, they haven't got to the point where they will turn towards the left and start to head in a slightly north-easterly direction. That's the moment they're racing for. They're all racing to position their leaders, to position their sprinters at the front end of the peloton, because they know when they turn left, and I keep looking at the clock and the map, we're looking at about 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, and as you can see them slowing down, they realize, oh, we haven't quite got to that point yet, but they're so nervous. They're all waiting for that moment when they know that the race is going to split again.
Well, such has been the pressure, the race organisers have just authorised the riders to receive drinks from the cars until 15 15 kilometres to go. Normally this has to stop at 20 and leave the race alone, but they've been under so much pressure today, I should imagine they're drinking all the water on the race.
Yeah, well, right, Phil, I don't think at 24 kilometres to go to the finish, I want to go back to the team car and get a few drinks, because if you do right now, it's going to be a very difficult moment to get up to the front end of the main field. Forget about having a drink now, just think about this. We're looking at a speed approaching 74 kilometres an hour right now. The leaders that we're talking about, the sprinters, look at the speeds that they're doing in the main field. They're all doing around
speeds right now, 40, 40, 40, all at 40 miles an hour or 74 kilometres an hour.
Yep, very, very quick, and that's why everyone is so nervous. I keep looking, 23 kilometres to go, and they all know that. They'll be getting this information from the team management. They will have looked at the maps, and very shortly, once they get into that town, the town should be just about on the horizon, Montbazin, and then the left-hand turn. Look at this. Everybody's trying to reposition themselves. Here's a bit of a sweeper to... Oh, they scare me, those traffic circles these days.
Yeah. Well, they're seeing them at such high speeds now, but they seem okay at this time around. Our old friend Steve Cumming, who's won a stage at the back here again, 104. Look at the flags, we changed direction. It's coming sweeping across, it's pushing the riders up against the hedges. It's all eyes down again.
Well, it certainly is, and you can now see everybody with that wind coming from the left-hand side getting pushed over to the right-hand side of the road. But now's the moment when you need to hold your position in the main field. Around the traffic circle as they start to head towards that little town of Montbazin, then we'll start to see who's got the energy, who's got the power to remain in the front 15 to 20 positions. 22 kilometres to go. That's around about 13 miles of racing, and that's going to be knocked off in less than half an hour today. Well, you can tell that the wind now is coming from the left-hand side of the screen. It's on the rider's left-hand shoulder, which is why they're scuttling across to the right-hand side. The front end, the men who are the strongest men in this race, occupying all of the road. All of they're doing is trying to shelter their teammates and shelter their leaders. Tinkoff looking after Peter Sagan and Roman Kreuziger as we head now into the beautiful little town of Montbazin. Just down there, you get a quick glimpse there of the chapel of Saint-Pierre. 11th, 12th century, and the riders won't have time for any of this history this afternoon, and that is a beautiful Romanesque chapel, unique on the account of the importance of its Romanesque frescoes and Byzantine influence, which is pretty rare in this region of France. So the building originally was an integral part of the castle that was here and part of its defensive system. Listed as a historic monument in France in 1964. Today it serves as a venue for concerts and cultural exhibitions and events. Well, all the kids having a quick run out there. All the kids in the yellow jerseys are coming down towards the side of the road, but you can just see that this wind is coming from the left-hand side. Everybody's scuttling over to the right-hand side, just looking for a little bit of respite from the wind.
Lee Howard tagged on to the back there of George Bennett, the New Zealand rider, because George was involved in a crash. Lee Howard, as we know, spent an awful long time ahead of the race today, but now they've been put to the back of the bunch under extreme pressure of the riding. It is turning out to be a terrific day of racing, what really is a quiet day of racing normally on these flatter roads. We're looking now for the 20 kilometres to go banner. Howard looks pretty cool considering he gave away so much effort in that breakaway with Arthur Vichot.
Yeah, but you can see the wounded riders, the wounded warriors at the back end. There is George Bennett. He's been down on the ground. A very dramatic crash by him early on, and also just in front of him, wearing number 84, the American rider Alex House. You can see he's also pretty much bandaged up, and both of these riders on spare machines, neither of the machines having the race numbers on. And again, the change in direction allows the peloton to slow down just a little bit, but you can almost feel the nervousness creeping in here as everybody wants to hold their position in the main field.
Oh, it's a tough day for Alex House. He's got bandages all over him. He looks like a man in a suit of armour at the moment. But those riders at the front now, first of all you got Tinkoff, clearly made their plans very, very apt for everybody. They're driving it at the front as we now swing out across the good wetlands here. This is a bird watcher's paradise, by the way, as we usually pick up the flamingos. Just looking out here across the situation. There's a nice little cathedral here. Well, that's a lovely place to build that cathedral, right in the middle of nowhere. Tell me about that one, Paul.
Well, that is the Cathedral of Magalone. As you can see, it's pretty much of a solitary cathedral stuck on a former volcanic island. Today it's linked to the main road, the mainland, by a number of bridges. And again, it is part of the old Gallo-Roman town here of Magaluano. There again, what a magnificent part of the world that we're riding through here this afternoon. It really is quite magical. And the history, there's a big Roman history in this part of the world as well, as we get back to the peloton now at 19 kilometers to go away from Montbazin into an area where there's not very much protection, not much respite from the wind. And these are the moments now when the overall contenders are thinking, I've just got a few more kilometres to stay in contact with this group. I don't want to lose any time this afternoon. And the sprinters are thinking, well, I've got to position myself. I've got to start to get my lead-out train well organised.
They've tried to hurt the field every opportunity on wind change, but now it looks as though they're just trying to guide. Richie Port in our camera there for Team BMC, but I'm struggling to find, see Alejandro Valverde, I can't see at the moment where TJ Van Garderen has drifted off to. We've got 3 Team B, and there's 2 down there. I think the back one, the second, bit far down for TJ. You better watch out if this wind changes direction.
And it's about to change direction as big old Fabian Cancellara comes right up through the middle. He wants to try and place his man Toons towards the front. He knows that the young sprinter on his squad has got a chance of cracking the top 5 and maybe the top 3 again. But look at this. All of a sudden, the big acceleration, the change of speed. Every time they come to these directional islands, they know that there's always the possibility the main field will split again and again.
Well, we've just seen Fabrice Jean-de-Beauce go out there for direct energy, because if this wind senses you lose a couple of meters, it blows you away. And the work now is on, and Cancellara is the rider who's come to the front.
Well, the wind was coming very strongly from the rider's left-hand shoulder, which is why you see everybody scuttling across to the right-hand side of the road, just looking for some shelter, looking for some respite. But I can tell you from experience, at the moment like that, if you're not really well sheltered at around about 45 degrees to the rider in front of you, you've got nowhere to go and you just get popped off the gap. You see how now the wind's coming from the left-hand side of the riders, they're forming that diagonal line, but you've got to fight to get the position on the right-hand part of the screen there. That's the most important place to be.
And guess who's winning the fight right now? It's Team Sky with the yellow jersey. It's their favourite position in the race, this, as they're still trying to organise it. And in fact, the green jersey of Peter Sagan is locked onto the yellow jersey now of Chris Froome, as they're sensing this. Oh, look at the grimace on their faces. This is beginning. Look at Mickey Shaw back there in the yellow helmet. He's sitting on the wheel of Sagan, and you don't often see Mickey Shaw grimace like that.
But you know, you look at the faces of these riders, Phil, and there's almost an appearance of panic there. But I noticed Bauke Mollema was up towards the front end of this peloton, but right direction. Look how much damage the wind can do on a flat day. You'd hardly believe it, but I can tell you, I've been in this situation before, and if you don't know how to position yourself, you crack. And one rider cracks in front of you, then all of a sudden there's a split in the main field.
I think I've seen a Movistar rider go out there with a flat tyre. I think it was Nelson Oliveira, and he's a pretty strong workhorse. Now we've got to keep an eye where the Movistar boys are located here, because they're not near the front just at the moment, as they're now starting to really ride. And look at the cheeky Peter Sagan. He's tempting everybody to come out and play. Yeah, but still 12k to go, and being chased by the yellow jersey. This is an amazing situation.
Well, Froome sees a little... Right, I know Peter Sagan, I know how strong he is, I'm going for this, and he's been, his teammate Geraint Thomas there, caught out a little bit. He was, I think, a bit surprised to see the acceleration coming from the yellow jersey.
Chris Froome is beginning to ride a Tour de France like the great Eddie Merckx. He's looking still to attack when the conditions maybe don't quite suit him, and he usually waits for the time trial or the mountain. He did it downhill into Luchon. He's now doing it on the flat roads to Montpellier.
There is Thibaut Pinot, the polka dot jersey again. Now Geraint Thomas has said, right, I've seen this. This is an opportunity. Look at the speed these riders are knocking out right now, Phil. We're looking 66 kilometres an hour. That's 40 42 miles an hour. BMC are the team that have been caught out a little bit. I don't think anybody would have expected Le Maillot Jaune, the yellow jersey, to go out like that. Katusha now on the offensive, trying to pull themselves back. Ethics Quickstep, you can see there in the black and blue jerseys, they're trying to nurse their man up there. And also you've got Dimension Data looking after their in there, hoping that it all comes back together.
Well, this brings back the conversation I had with a former yellow jersey in the Tour de France an hour before we came on air, Rolf Sorensen. He said today Quintana will lose the Tour de France, and I thought he must be going mad. But at the moment, Quintana's caught in that group, and every second counts. He really is locked in at the moment, while it's Peter Sagan and the yellow jersey who try to drive it away.
I was just looking around that group there to see if there were any other riders from Novistar, but it looked to me as if all of a sudden Nairo Quintana was a little bit isolated, but none of the other contenders, Phil, could, I think, have expected that. There's Quintana there. He's looking around saying, hey, this is not good for me.
There are no Movistar riders there except Valverde further up the line.
Yeah, but he's fairly lucky that there's a number of riders trying to get themselves organised, but as you can see, they're only using half of the road, and that doesn't leave a lot of space left for everybody else to get any shelter or any respite from the wind.
Quintana has conceded 9 seconds at the moment, as now Chris Froome saying, look, he's prepared to work here with Peter Sagan. The face on Geraint Thomas, he's just hanging on to Chris Froome at the moment as they continue to drive as best they can, and it is Maciej Bodnar who is the Tinkoff rider helping.
Well, Race Radio is saying 8 seconds advantage, the computer saying 12 seconds advantage. This is pretty much unheard of to see a guy like Chris Froome go out on the attack on a stage like this, but it just goes to show, as we've said, Phil, since the start of this Tour de France, any day is a good opportunity. Now you can start to see they're beginning to get themselves organised, and the teams of the sprinters must start to think, wait, hey, we're getting this wrong right now. We're allowing a man who is the king of the mountains to get into a breakaway. There's Quintana. I just keep looking around. Where's his teammates? Where are the men to look after him?
They are, and I'll go back to Rolf Sorensen, who said his team will not be able to help him on a stage like this, and Quintana now is going to have to do it for himself. He's on the right of the picture there as he rides on the shoulders of the leader of the Lotto Jumbo team, and that rider is Bauke Mollema. Sorry, is Wilco Kelderman, yeah.
Number 91, just in the middle there with the yellow helmet, red jersey, that is Richie Porte. And his teammate is up there alongside him as well, TJ Van Garderen. But the gap, Phil, Race Radio is now saying it's stretched out to 16 seconds. This is amazing.
It should have been anticipated, I think, but it hasn't been so far. But the gaps are there. Adam Yates is also in a spot of bother. He's caught back with Dan Martin as well as Rodriguez. Even further back, it's time gain across the board for favourites if they push this one home. Geraint Thomas is the only Sky rider able to go. And look at Peter Sagan, because he knows if he races away with these four, he wins the stage.
Yeah, but he will collaborate because this is a beautiful opportunity for him.
Terrific riding.
The wind is coming from the left-hand side. That's why you can see that diagonal line. Now all of a sudden you've got Giant Alpecin trying to wind it up, MTN Qhubeka as well. I don't think anybody expected this, but look at the speeds as we start to look at 7.5 kilometers to go to the finish. We are seeing speeds again, Phil, notching up there to 70 kilometers an hour.
This is seconds. The way Froome is riding are going to hurt the Colombian rider. Froome's totally changed his approach to this year's race. The peloton behind are racing for 5th place, and that wasn't meant to be that way for the sprinters today.
Well, the 4 leaders, Phil, by the way, have just gone through the banner indicating 2 kilometers to go to the finish. And the fact is, you know, 2 riders from the same team on each breakaway group there means that they're never going to hold something back. You know you're in a tactically superb position. Geraint Thomas isn't thinking about winning the stage here this afternoon. He's thinking about gaining time for Chris Froome. The other rider in there as well, Bodnar, as they go to 1 kilometer to go.
They've closed it right in about 5 seconds, maybe 6.
Yep, but Phil, an extra 6 seconds time bonus there.
Yep.
The 6-second time bonus will give an 11-second gain on the day for Chris Froome. And just tell me one thing, did you ever think that could be an outcome today?
I tell you what, Chris Froome today became a giant of the world of cycling. Not just using what he's good at, he's tried every which way, and so far it's worked.
devo lasciare, ma è partito lui.
Well, there you have the winner of the stage, and look at the damage that those final few kilometres have done here this afternoon, because that is some serious damage done in the flatter stage so far in the crosswinds. You really do have to learn that technique of riding in crosswinds on a day like this. Well, that was audacious, I have to say, as we see the gaps coming. A minute and 9 seconds lost there. Marcel Seeberger coming across the line in a day that we expected it to be for the sprinters. It was all about being attentive, all about being in, I mean, a look at the speed. So far, the fastest stage was 45 kilometres to Michael Matthews. It is now the average speed of today's stage, 47 kilometres an hour. Stage victory number 2 for Mr. Sagan. Brilliant ride by Peter Sagan, having his teammate up alongside him, Bodnar, and Chris Froome looks back to say, well, there we go, a few more seconds grabbed here and there, but more importantly, a few more seconds over all of the other contenders in the overall race at the Tour de France. But the day belongs to the man in green, the world champion Peter Sagan, and now really dramatically extending his lead in that green jersey points competition. Well, we get that confirmation. I did not think that I would be calling second place for Chris Froome on a stage like today. Yes, Peter Sagan was one of the big favourites to get himself some points, but that was a very dramatic run in towards the finishing line.
Well, what a terrific day of racing, Paul. It really was. I take my hat off today to Chris Froome. He's a real champion of the Tour de France. And Sagan, what can you say about him, Matt Keenan?
Well, Phil, it looked as if Peter Sagan was trying to get the stage victory for his teammate Matej Bodnar, but they just went too far from the finish line. Tinkoff today, phenomenal performance. Likewise, Team Sky, so entertaining. But you have to ask the question, yes, it was entertaining, a small time gain for Chris Froome, but how much energy did he waste that he won't have tomorrow as they head up Mont Ventoux? We'll find out tomorrow whether he pays the price for his efforts today, but regardless of what the ultimate outcome is, Chris Froome has gone from being so-called boring and predictable to the most entertaining cyclist battling out for the yellow jersey at this year's Tour de France. He and Peter Sagan are riding a race in a similar sort of vein, consistently attacking. This is Frank Schleck now coming through with an average speed for the stage winner of 47.24 kilometres per hour. Always the sort of day that Frank Schleck didn't enjoy. And the fist pump from Matteo Desato, the man who started it all in the crosswinds. They got the stage victory. Second yesterday for Peter Sagan, first today, extends his lead in the race for green. Kirienka also smiling from Team Sky as the King of the Mountains leader Thibaut Pinot works his way across the line. It was a tough day for Pinot. He was in the early crash and was consistently chasing. The beautiful old city of Montpellier that we now get a chance to enjoy. And this is a part of the old city built in around the castle, the fortified walls that date back to the 11th century. Well, today there was no breaking the walls of Tinkoff. They controlled the final 19 kilometres. They were the ones that set the agenda very early on in the pace. The old Roman aqueduct that eventually runs up to the Triumph Arch. This was built by King Charles VIII. As we take a look at the peloton coming in across the finish line, Lee Howard in amongst them, who was in the initial breakaway today with the French national champion Arthur Vichot. Michael Matthews in this group, the winner of yesterday's stage. Daryl Impey also in the group, who took the yellow jersey here 3 years ago. And Luke Rowe was there from Team Sky, just discussing what happened throughout the day. George Bennett in the yellow colours of Lotto NL Jumbo chatting with Rowan Dennis. There's Arthur Vichot at the back of the group, who was in the break with Lee Howard when things got started. Reto Hollenstein is the other rider at the front for IM Cycling, riding alongside Lee Howard. This is one of the days where many of them would probably want to watch the highlights package because it was full of highlights. With Mont Ventoux being the destination, who has the best climbing legs is normally the main topic of conversation, but today all the talk is about the wind from Montpellier to the base of the famous Giant of Provence. It'll be an enormous battle just to get there. Hello and welcome to stage 12 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you, and that's not quite the destination because the wind has had its stay. The stage has been ever so slightly shortened. They only go part way up Ventoux. Bastille Day, stage 12, and it starts at Montpellier, and it's a flat run throughout the start of the stage, but it is windswept. They then head into Provence. There are two small climbs as stepping stones to get towards Mont Ventoux. They don't quite go all the way to the top. They're stopping 6 kilometres short. It's a 178 kilometre stage. The finish line is the Chalet Reynard. And it has been modified, but this is the situation of the day. It has been an incredibly fast start to the stage. Breakaway group of 13. They have an advantage of 18.5 minutes. And throughout the first hour of racing, they covered 74.8 kilometres. This is Danny Navarro going through to the front in the red colours of the Cofidis team. And he is the best placed overall from this breakaway group. 38th position, 33 minutes and 49 seconds behind the yellow jersey. Two riders in the breakaway for Dimension Data. At the back of the group, it's Serge Pals, and the Eritrean national champion Daniel Teklehaimanot is also in this group. He has a chance to make history today, Daniel, as the first Eritrean to be a stage winner at the Tour de France. This is the chasing group of 5. Tom Yelter-Schlachter from the Cannondale squad, Voss from Bora Argonne 18, it's Goutier from AG Tour Le Mondial, Preidler in the of the Giant Alpecin team. Diego Rosa is the man who is there for Astana. Last time check on these riders had them pinned at around about 5 minutes. 5 minutes and 48 seconds according to the official, 5 minutes and according to the official Tour tracker, which is courtesy of Dimension Data, showing us exactly what they can do away from the bike, because they've shown us what they can do on the bike, and it has been impressive. Well, they made their way past Nîmes earlier on the stage today, and they have been going incredibly quickly throughout today's stage. They've gotten a little bit further on as we look at the Chateau Beaucaire. It's on the banks of the Rhône. It was built in 1216, at least that's when the construction of it started, and it was a powerful fortress overlooking the town, but it was taken following a 13-week siege by Simon de Montfort. It was rebuilt during the reign of King Louis IX. And the fortification, the walls, they were pulled down in 1632 and opened things up to the town that sits below it. It's a shame that they've gone so quickly, so we've missed out on a chance of seeing the beautiful city of Nîmes with its wonderful Roman architecture, including the big stadium in the centre of town, which used to hold 25,000 spectators, the old Colosseum. And there used to be the fights between the animals and the gladiators. Today it's still a major venue for shows, bullfighting, and was also the scene for a finish of a few stages of the Tour de France. The Chateau de Bois-René that we're now getting a chance to take a look at, that sits on the other side of the Rhône. A wonderful looking building. Louis Daigneau was the one that was the governor of Languedoc that constructed this building. Actually took it away from Queen Joanna. Seized powers of the region as a result of getting his hands on that chateau. One of the best preserved medieval castles in France. Peloton being led now by Team Sky, and it's Ian Stannard who was on the front, and didn't they have an outstanding day on the roads yesterday to Montpellier. More of a presence of Movistar at the front today. I wonder if they were licking their wounds yesterday. This is Bert-Jan Lindemann, number 54, at the back of the group. One of two riders in the move for Lotto NL Jumbo. The other one is Sepp van Mark, specialist for the Spring Classics. Bert-Jan Lindemann did win a mountain stage of last year's Volta a España as a result of getting in a big early breakaway. It's hard to pick the favourite from that leading group. No pure climbers at the front of the race. Perhaps the closest is Daniel Tekle-Harmanot. Thomas de Gendt in the red colours, another breakaway for him. Let's not forget that he's been a stage winner at the Giro d'Italia over the Stelvio, one of the biggest climbs in cycling in terms of altitude that it goes to, and one of the most feared, and has also finished third at the Tour of Italy. So Thomas de Gendt, when he gets his nose in front, he can be tough to beat. Two riders from Lotto, two from Dimension Data, two from Lotto NL Jumbo. And the crosswinds are now starting to have an impact on the peloton. Thibaut Pinot at the back of the race in the polka dot jersey. It's edX Quick-Step along with Sky who get things started. This is a lot further back down the road than 84 kilometres to go. This is more like 97 kilometres to go that this group is making their way through. And we're a long way from the base of the mountain for the big contenders for the yellow jersey in this year's tour. The racing is already on. Reminiscent of what we saw yesterday's Fabian Cancellara leads Trek Segafredo around the right-hand side of the peloton, positioning Bauke Mollema at the front. And that is a small group. There's a split, and you can see the pink and blue colours of Lamprey. And I fear for the South Africans tuning in that Louis Meintjes once again has missed the split. The young South African sitting in second place in the race for the white jersey, just outside the top 10 overall. He conceded a small chunk of time on the stage yesterday. He also had Peter Sagan in his group. It's an early battle for position. The Dutch national champion, Dylan Groenewegen, is in this contingent of riders. So too the French national champion, Arthur Vichot. The Polish national champion is just behind him, and the Norwegian national champion, Edvald Bosenhagen. He had high hopes for this stage, Thibaut Pinot. They're dashed already, I fear. He's got the Kiwi Greg Henderson sitting behind him. The brilliance and the art of racing in the crosswind. Team Sky have nailed it in this year's Tour de France. Movistar really need to make sure they protected Nairo Quintana a lot better today than what they did yesterday. Quite a few red jerseys with the yellow helmet on from BMC. The leaders of the team's classification have been caught behind the split. The two men they need to protect, Richie Porte and TJ Van Garderen. And nerves were a little frayed at the BMC bus yesterday after the stage. Number 32, the wearer of the green jersey, Peter Sagan. He's smiling in his profile shot, just as he did on the podium yesterday when he collected his second stage victory for this year at the Tour. The 6th in his career. Not super concerned about today's stage. He said beforehand that really today should be more like a rest day for him. Simon Gerrans coming through to the front for Orica Bike Exchange. It's then Chris Froome, Tony Martin in the blue colours. Marcus Burkhardt behind him from BMC. And there's Nairo Quintana. The roll call has been taken and he's right at the front of the classroom, ready to answer the teacher's questions. It was a good day yesterday for Dan Martin from edX Quick-Step. He defended his place at the front as they were racing through the crosswind, and he thanked Tony Martin for his support. We return to the breakaway group. In the black colours from the Fortunato Vital Concept team, the former Danish national champion Chris Anker Sorensen. Coquard goes through for Direct Energy. Serge Pauls in the white colours of Dimension Data. This is De Gent, the next one through, followed by Greipel, Chavanel. Cyril Limois is the other rider here from Cofidis. Tekla Hamenot at the back of the group. In the blue colours, Ilio Kaiser. Steph Clement is the rider who is there for the Swiss team, IM Cycling. I had lunch with Rolf Sorensen today about it finishing 6 kilometres earlier. I thought he's a man whose brain is a good one to pick. He's firmly the view that's actually to the favour of Nairo Quintana, because once you get that last 6 kilometres, it's open road, often a headwind, that would nullify the attacks. Do you agree with him?
He's absolutely correct. That was always the hardest thing about the last 6 kilometres of the Mont Ventoux. It's not all that steep, but it's incredibly windy. So it's hard to get anybody out of your wheel. Further down below the tree line, where it's a bit more protected, steeper slopes, it's down to the rider and how fast they can climb. The wind doesn't have as much of an influence on the race down there. So that is a good thing for Nairo Quintana. But he's got to have the legs to be able to attack Chris Froome, obviously.
Theories are wonderful. Putting them into practice is a lot more difficult. 1 kilometre to the intermediate sprint. This has popped up so quickly. No riders in this group who are a real challenge, with the exception of Brian Coquard for the green jersey, who will want to be improving his position. He's currently in 6th place. He's 197 points behind Peter Sagan.
But he could move himself up to 4th place in that competition by taking 20 points at this intermediate sprint. So he'll leapfrog the 2 riders just in front of him, which is Greg Van Avermaet and Michael Matthews.
And he's got Andre Greipel in here, and I'm not sure Andre Greipel is going to worry too much about the points, as he's in 7th place. He's at 210 points behind Peter Sagan. Will he bother?
Well, they're finishing on the Mont Ventoux at Chalet Renard. Andre Greipel will be thinking, I'm probably going to finish around 12th or 13th out of this 13-man group, and he might want to try and get something out of the stage. Looking not to get boxed in, and there he goes.
Others want to get a bit out of the stage as well. Bert-Jan Lindemann is moving up the right side.
It's
Ilio Kaiser is leading out. Greipel now steps through. A little bit difficult to tell from that angle, but what we do know from the flags on the side of the road is that it's incredibly windy.
I was quite surprised to see Andre Greipel get himself boxed in on that occasion. He got to the front a little bit too soon, and it was the track specialist Ilio Kaiser, winner of the final stage in the Giro d'Italia last year, who hit out, and we'll have to wait for the official result. There's a throw for the line by both of those riders. Coquard, he was too late, he gave up, ran 4th across the line. And it was Lindemann who was always also up amongst there, and also probably just thinking, I'll try and get something out of this stage, not rating himself as a climber.
Story today from Rolf Sorensen, who was in the race, as to how the breakaway happened. It was an aggressive start to the stage, and a lot of the sprinters teams had the conversation, let's take it easy early and let everybody race up. And then Eros Poli, one of the enforcers, he got frustrated. He said, you want to race, you want to attack, this is how you do it. And he went off the front, looked over his shoulder and had a gap and thought, I might go on with it.
Well, as you said, he lost a minute per kilometre. The climb's 21 kilometres long, had 3 left at the top, and soloed down to a Tour de France stage win in a most unlikely stage for a guy who weighed well over 90 kilos. A very big man, Eros Poli. You'd think he was a basketballer playing dress up as a cyclist if you'd seen him.
And he's married to a Tasmanian.
Spent quite a lot of time in the gruppettos with Eros in my first couple of tours, along with Henk Vogels and Stuart O'Grady and Magnus Backstedt, all teammates at the GAN team at that time.
This is Paul Voss.
How unlucky was Voss today?
Stuck in the middle, in the group, mechanical, stuck in the middle. Back now, though, with the yellow jersey group of Chris Froome. Been taken up this climb by Simon Gerrans. Good signs for Simon Gerrans, looking forward to the Olympic Games in Rio.
Well, hopefully looking forward to something in the rest of this tour as well, and we expected Simon Gerrans maybe in Cherbourg on stage 2, possibly the sprint to Limoges where Marcel Kittel won that uphill run to the line, but a bit too in favour of the sprinters there. Possibly Le Lioran, but that was won by Greg Van Avermaet in a long break. But Simon Gerrans, he'll certainly be planning to try and match what Michael Matthews did the other day and get himself another stage win in the Tour de France.
Stage 16, a breakaway from Simon Gerrans, a chance to win. This is Preidler now, the Austrian, about to be caught by the Gerrans-led group. He was another one of the men in that group of 5 that was stuck in the middle. So the good news from that is for Fabio Aru, his teammate Diego Rosa will be caught fairly soon as well. That's Borat Bozic going out the back. This is Marco Heller struggling to claw his way to the top of this climb, and if he can survive to the top, then he'll be able to do the rest of the job required to protect Joaquin Rodriguez to the bottom of Mont Ventoux. Good climber, Preidler. He rode well at the Giro d'Italia with a couple of near misses.
Now, Matt, people who are looking at the profile of this stage, they'll be looking at the climb of the Mont Ventoux, and in the book it says it's 15.7 kilometres as they now come over the top of that Category 3 climb led by Simon Gerrans. Looking at the book, the official race book says the Mont Ventoux is 15.7 kilometres at 8.8%. A moment ago you heard me say it's 21 kilometres long. The race book says that the climb starts in Saint-Estève. No, it starts from Bédoin. That's where the road starts to go up, and believe me, it climbs out of Bédoin, and everybody in the bunch will tell you it is 21 kilometres long. So the actual climb they will do today to the Chalet kilometres, the average 8.8%. Well, the top 6 kilometres aren't as steep anymore as the rest, so the average will be over 9% for the climb to Chalet Renard. I've been asked what sort of gear ratios the riders will be using today. Generally 39 front inside chainring, and on the back they'll probably have up to 25, but the best climbers, they won't be touching that. They'll be riding up in the 19, the 21, possibly someone who rides a really high cadence might get in the 23 for a while. The sprinters, they would have asked the mechanic to please put on a 27 or a 28 so they can ride up as easy as possible. Now see Andre Greipel getting back onto that front group, and expect him to go to the front and drive the pace.
This is the leading group of 13. Andre Greipel putting in an enormous amount of work to support Thomas De Gendt, as we say. Diego Rosa now from Astana being caught by the Gerrans-led group. Diego Rosa, the first thing he will do is find Fabio Aru and see how he's going. He's sacrificed himself plenty of times in the past, Simon Gerrans, including when he was at Team Sky and working for the likes of Bradley Wiggins. This is Matty Breschel in the green colours of Cannondale Drapac. Their hopes today rest on the shoulders of Pierre Rolland, but I don't like his chances. He's won some big stages in the past, Pierre Rolland, but never going head-to-head with the world's best climbers. It's normally been through getting into a breakaway. Life is all about timing. We do apologise for the timing. The Merckx piece coinciding with the crash. Simon Gerrans going down, and a large contingent of riders from Team Sky. And Chris Froome himself has gone to the front to call it off, and the rest of the group is slowing down. But that also provides the opportunity for the second group with Louis Meintjes, Warren Barguil, and a whole host of others who missed the split in the crosswind. This is Ian Stannard.
And here is that chase group led by Giant Alpecin for Warren Barguil, so they look like they will get back on. Well, one man's misfortune is another man's gain. Unfortunately, Simon Gerrans the one to go down as he led into a tight left-hand bend. Skyriders going over the top of him. Look, complete truce at the front. Chris Froome said to everybody, we have to stop, we have to wait. He actually took the chance to have another nature break, and he'll pedal his way back on, as it looks like also the chase group will do, and everything will come back together for the foot of the Ventoux. Let's just hope those riders are okay to continue. There's no broken bones.
It shows how quickly things can change, and he's in yellow, he's won it twice before, but nothing is secured for Chris Froome. And that fall by Simon Gerrans, he's a brilliant bike handler. He did motocross as a kid, speedway racing, the whole lot. He's accustomed to going sideways. I can't help but think that the wind played a big part in that crash.
Let's have a look. And the front wheel washes out even before he had a lot of pressure on it. He really didn't have it leaned in all that much. We'll get another look from the motorbike. It is very windy, but just as he starts to tip into the corner, even before he gets into the tightest part of the corner, he was gone. So makes me wonder if there was maybe something on the road, a little bit of oil quite possibly. Didn't get to see the road surface there. Sometimes you feel when you're going and you can almost soak it up a bit. Simon Gerrans had no idea what hit him. And neither did the guys behind. No time to react. Stannard straight over the top.
He's had a lot of crashes in the last 2 years, Simon Gerrans. And what does that do to his hopes at the Olympic Games that only moments ago we were speaking about?
Well, the hopes of Olympics and the hopes of doing something more for himself in this race, and let's hope he's okay. Went down very heavily on his shoulder, and he's had a number of broken collarbones before. This is Brian Coquard, and he has been, by the looks of things, dropped out of that front group. But Coquard wasn't one of the favourites to win on the Ventoux. To Chalet Renard out of that front group. Just behind it,
he is one of the favourites, though, for using the most hair product. He's always got the wonderful coif. He and Marcel Kittel. We do like Brian Coquard, the way he races. He's entertaining, he sprints with great tenacity, and look how strong the wind is. And Andre Greipel ducking the head, getting as aerodynamic as he can for what shelter is on offer from Serge Pals. This is an echelon. This is from the left-hand side of the road all the way into the gutter, and this is only a small group of 13.
Watch the subtle change in body language when each rider hits the front. They sort of duck their head a little bit. Thomas De Gendt right on cue. Thank you, Thomas. Trying to just force their way into the wind, get a little more aerodynamic and just a tighter hold on those handlebars and really try and be rock solid on the bike. Because like I said about a week or so ago when we were in Normandy, and it's even more true today than it was then. It's windy enough to blow off your beret.
It's done that today to Simon Gerrans, unfortunately for him. Still a lot of calm within this group. I wonder how long that will last. Once they get to that section that we just saw the lead group go through, where it was really windy, it's much harder to contain it there. And here comes the group returning. Fabian Cancellara, Arthur Vichot, and the rest of the riders from FDJ, along with the polka dot jersey of Thibaut Pinot, a long way back. But here come the pink and blue colours of Louis Meintjes from Lamprey. He's back in the hunt for white. It's worked out well for Louis.
Nobody wants to see anybody else crash, but in a way they'll be thinking, this is our lucky day.
Tailwind to the base of the climb, and then we'll see what happens in those trees. Somebody's going to have to jump because they're not all climbers in this group.
Well, this in fact now for the leading group of riders that we're looking at, Phil, they are just coming into Bédoin, and for every cyclist they always really regard this as the start of the climb proper. Once you move away from Bédoin, most people regard this as their gateway to the climb of Mont Ventoux.
Yes, the very name strikes fear into the hearts of the non-climbers in the Tour de France.
16 kilometres, 10 miles of racing in old money. That is the leading group of contenders who are now in second position on the road as they too now start to line themselves up. But here in Bédoin, which is a very attractive Provençal market town, the wine growers of Bédoin cultivate approximately 800 hectares of vines, and this of course is known as the Côte de Ventoux. And as I mentioned earlier, Eric Carretou, a former two-time winner of the Vuelta a España, has his own vineyard just down towards the slopes of the climb here. It's very much an interesting area from the characteristics not only of the climate in this part of the world, but also the geological characteristics too, because the ground here is very dry, very sandy, and it drains very, very quickly. The nod's obviously going out now. I can see Tinkoff starting to look after Roman Kreuziger. He's the third place rider in that line of Tinkoff riders there. He's got a slightly different band around the middle. He's the champion. Look at the wind there. The flags there you can see is really coming to be a block headwind. But fortunately for the riders, once they get into the forest at the bottom, they reach the steep gradients of the climb, but then they will get some respite from the wind. Amazing crowds here for the leading group of riders. Let's not forget, it is a big day for France. There was a huge parade on the Champs-Élysées this morning with the French patrolling and parading all of their military wares on the Champs-Élysées on a very special day. Tonight, in some of the most beautiful parts of France, there will be massive firework displays. In fact, the town where we left from a couple of days ago, Carcassonne, has one of the most beautiful fireworks displays in the whole of France. And unfortunately we're moving away from that. Back with the leaders now, as they haven't yet quite got there. There's 20 kilometers, 12.5 miles to go to the finishing line, and this is the sort of damage that's happening at the back. Everyone now trying to position their leaders in a good position as they get themselves ready for the climb. Movistar, well, I'm sure this has got to be an important day for Nairo Quintana. He's moving into his terrain. Now there's the first move. Now that is pretty daring, because that is the sprinter. Now what a story that would be if Andre Greipel could create the surprise here this afternoon. The sprinter, Andre Greipel, has gone out on the attack. He knows what's in store, but you know, Andre Greipel has won stages in breakaways like this before.
Well, I think we should have predicted this. Andre Greipel can't climb, but he's going to make the riders chase him and soften them up for Thomas de Gendt.
Well, you know, it's quite funny, Phil, because very often we always talk about sprinters like Mark Cavendish, like Andre Greipel not being attacking riders. But if you cast your mind back to last year, Andre Greipel won in a solo breakaway like this in the Tour of Luxembourg, when everybody thought he was going to wait for the final sprint of the day. They need to respond to a move like this, because Andre Greipel, well, he is laying down the foundations, I think, for an attack later on from Thomas de Gendt. But a brave move for a sprinter.
A brave move, and let's remember his nickname. It's a gorilla, and gorillas live in mountainous terrain in Rwanda.
Yeah, but there's a lot more forest in Rwanda than there is on the slopes of the Mont Ventoux, which has been deforested over the years. And one of the reasons it was deforested, by the way, was they took all of the trees down to make ships down in Toulon.
So Greipel's gone, the peloton behind, the 11 men he's left behind are just giving him distance here. They're going to let the climb itself probably bring him back towards them. It's the Cofidis rider, Daniel Navarro, a possible winner on the front. Third man is the man who hopes to win the stage. Remember, he almost did on stage 4 into Lorient, when he got second place to Greg Van Avermaet, and that is Thomas de Gendt.
Well, I've got to tell you, Phil, I've got a big smile all over my face here, because I think that is a very interesting move by Andre Greipel. It's great to see a sprinter doing something like this, showing no fear at all of what is ahead. He knows in the back of his mind what sort of pain he is about to go through, but he still had the audacity to go out and make a move like this.
What do you think of this move, Jens Voigt, by Andre?
Well, I guess Andre was watching Chris Froome closely yesterday, thought, hey, what he can do, I can do twice. So now we see Chris Froome being on a podium on a sprinter stage, and Andre Greipel goes, okay, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna be on a podium and a mountaintop finish. So I keep my fingers crossed for him. I think that's a great move. He goes, hey, you know what? If I can't win in a sprint, I might as well win on a Mont Ventoux. The chances to win are very small, but I just love it. It's just great for the show.
Totally agree with you, and he's off and he's out of sight at the moment, as we're looking here at the German flag flying there as well.
Well, I think at the end of the day, Phil, although it's a great show from Andre Greipel, what he's trying to do is toughen up the chase behind and lay down the foundations for his teammate, because Lotto Soudal have got 2 riders in that group, and obviously Thomas de Gendt would like to win the stage.
Well, take a look at the boys from Movistar. They're trying to toughen up the race back there, which is for the yellow jersey and the next wearer of it. Remember, Chris Froome leads by only 28 seconds over his British countryman Adam Yates, and Quintana, which is why those boys are working hard, is looking for just 35 seconds. Well, Mont Ventoux can look down on the Tour de France today, knowing that the riders aren't going to quite reach that observatory on the top. There's the gaps for you, 8.29. Well, there's no worries now, Paul. The peloton are not going to latch up with those 12 front runners.
No, but I think a couple of riders will be happy to have recovered. Louis Meintjes and Warren Barguil. You can just see from the graphic that there's a green and a polka dot sign up there, and that is to indicate that Peter Sagan never got back into this group because of the long chase, and neither too did Thibaut Pinot, the leader in the King of the Mountains competition. In this group, though, Phil, there is still the battle, because these guys are battling for seconds. Rui Costa.
Rui Costa, who was up there early in the chase group, now coming back. His day is done. And this is beginning to split up now. The pressure going on here, and it's being put on by Française de Jeux. Well, no, in fact, these boys have been split off the back. Our camera's coming through. One by one, there's some names being dropped off the back. Rui Costa was the first to go. And that looks to me as though we've also got Matthias Frank, I think it was, Paul, that just went off the back there as well.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise, because Matthias Frank was regarded as a man who could probably ride well in this race, but I think he's still struggling to get over the illness that he had in the Tour of Switzerland. There is Andre Greipel, and the fact that we can see him so closely means the group is closing in.
The French flag flying proudly on Bastille Day. Fireworks will be tonight around midnight all over France. There might be some fireworks here in a few minutes. Fabian Cancellara for Trek Segafredo coming up into second wheel there.
Well, everybody now, Phil, in this group that we're looking at, the contenders to win the Tour de France overall, are making sure that they look after their team leaders, and Fabian Cancellara was looking after the position of Bauke Mollema.
Yes, Bauke Mollema is in 5th place overall in this race, and we've hardly seen him, so he's playing very, very cleverly against the big names on this race.
Well, as you can see now, as we look at the flags, and it's still an incredibly blustery wind. This is at the bottom of the climb before we really get into the forested part of the Mont Ventoux. Oh, the problem here. Well, I didn't get a chance to see, but that was one of the riders from Astana who had a mechanical problem.
I think it was Sanchez, but he was in the shadow of the trees there.
Well, in fact, it was Vincenzo Nibali in person who had a problem. He's looking down. He's looking for the team car as well, but the big problem is, it looks as if he's got something wrapped up in his back wheel there, and Vincenzo Nibali will have a long way. Well, all of a sudden, back with the leaders here. Andre Greipel was on the attack. Now he's being caught and passed by the rest of the group, and maybe and hopefully for him, he's done enough to lay down the foundations for a victory for his teammate Thomas Suchent. Meanwhile, Trek Segafredo, they're thinking about their team leader, Bauke Mollema. As we said, they're lying in 5th place in the overall standings. 10 kilometers to go for the leaders, but the main group there is in fact only just going through the town of Bédoin. Alaphilippe, yeah, he's here to learn this year. He was very aggressive in the first few days of the race. Now we're starting to see the leading group splinter as well. Ilio Kaiser, he's more of a sprinter, a very good track rider, part of the lead-out train for Marcel Kittel. He has also now been left behind by that leading group. A sort of a quiet moment now as the final few moments before they really start to open up the gas and do the damage between the overall contenders. A brief reminder as we go into this big climb here, Chris Froome has a 28-second advantage over Adam Yates, 31-second advantage over Dan Martin, and 35 seconds over Nairo Quintana. But there is only just about a minute still separating the first 9 riders in the overall standings, with TJ Van Garderen 9th at a minute 13. And there will be bigger time gaps tonight, but the question is, which way are they going to go? Is Nairo Quintana, the Colombian climber from Tunja, finally going to light the blue touch paper on Bastille Day and set off the fireworks, because this is his terrain and this is the moment when he needs to really start to move a little closer to Chris Froome if he wants to dream about going better than his 2 second places. So the leading group now down to 11 riders, 10 kilometers to go. That's Chris Anker Sorensen just down towards the back there, nodding his head around, a rider who for many years was a stalwart for Team CSC. Come across to this team now with Fortuneo as the captain of the team, as we get a chance there to look up. 9.8 kilometers to the summit of the Mont Ventoux, and now it's not exactly the real top of the climb because of these climatic conditions. We're finishing at the Chalet Renard, which itself is a base for a ski station part way up the climb, at 6 kilometers to go to the top. Just looking, Danny Navarro seems to be the... no, it's not Danny Navarro. In fact, it's the red jersey. Well, in fact, Thomas de Gendt now takes up the pace-making. Chris Anker Sorensen has lost contact. Well, Danny Navarro,
yep,
he's gone off the back now. That's a bit of a surprise to me, because
no, Cyril Limon.
Oh well, that would have been a surprise. Yeah, well, I was just looking for the red jerseys. We look at the climb here, Phil, 9.7 kilometers. Today we climb up to just inside of 5,000 feet. 9.4% is the average gradient, but because of the shortened nature of the stage today, the maximum gradients are 12.3%, as more and more riders are seriously in trouble.
Well, this is it now, and this is Chavanel going off the back as well, quickly followed by Stef Clement, the Dutchman, and now round the corner. In fact, Chavanel wants to try and get back into here, but the men we expected are going forward. Serge Powell's going forward, Daniel Navarro is going forward, the men who we think might get into it, and Thomas de Gendt is up there as well. Remember, if de Gendt wins the stage, he takes the lead in the King of the Mountains, which for him is a big target.
Yes, Daniel Tekle-Heimanot is also in contact with that leading group, the double national champion of Eritrea, as Chavanel just trying to find his rhythm. I can tell you, Phil, from remembrance, this is a very nasty side to the climb. These first kilometers are really painful, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen such an incredible climb. Maybe the crowd has been concentrated because they've come down 6 kilometers.
I guess they've walked down to join the race lower down. They've been parked up on top for a week. But Tekle-Heimanot is going off the back as well. Well, life is down the peloton here at the moment. After all of that hard work, Tom Dumoulin sat at the back now. He had to bring his teammate back up earlier, Warren Barguil.
Well, this is Markus Burkhardt on the front. You see the Swiss flag around his sleeves there, a former champion of Switzerland. He's been setting the pace for his two leaders, Van Garderen and Richie Porte.
Well, just the pure climbers are left here. We're watching Bert-Jan Lindemann holding on to them in his first Tour de France. This is Fabien Cancellara slipping away.
Yep, his job done as well. He really was trying to set the pace, a very, very hard pace that he was setting, as we see more and more riders slipping away. Van Avermaet has been dropped, the former leader of this race. Michael Schaar slipping away as well. This is Roland.
Well, Pierre Roland, who is earning at least all the respect of his team for the way he's riding after his crash, is going early enough to try and get away, but there's no way he can get to the front now as we race into Saint Colomba, which is part of the Bédoin district. 7 minutes the gap to those front runners now.
You just look at the style of these riders at the back. They're all struggling. They're all concentrating on the back wheel of the rider in front of them, hoping they can stay in contact for a kilometre or so longer. Now we're not at all surprised to see the control going back to Team Sky once again.
They're not going to initially react to this move here, because Pierre Roland isn't going to win the stage and isn't going to take over the leadership of the Tour, because he's over 5 minutes behind Chris Froome overall. One by one, the mountain bites.
Well, that was Lindemann going backwards there as we move forward. I tell you what, Thomas de Gendt is doing a phenomenal ride. That's de Gendt just around the corner there, and they did set this up with that attack by Andre Greipel, but responding, another Belgium in second position there, Serge Pauwels.
Well, this is amazing for the Belgians in the mountains competition this year. It really is. This is the race, remember, for the yellow jersey. It is up to Nairo Quintana to stop following the back wheel of Chris Froome, and I'm not sure he can do that.
Well, once we get to the steeper the slopes of the climb, we will see Pierre Rolland has made that move, but he's not really opened up the gap. One by one, riders from Movistar are slipping away. That's Gorka Izagirre. He's slipping off the back.
Yes, and also Ruben Platz is going there. Orica Bike Exchange, he's a climber, but he's gone. It's been a steady pace all of the day, this one. This is Frank Schleck, number 65. It looks as though the rope's running out there as well.
Well, Schleck, I mean, when you think about how hard this stage has been, Phil, it's been rapid since the very get-go. As we go back to Vasil Kirienka, world time trial champion, he will set the pace, and this is modus operandi for Team Sky. They just set the pace, a hard pace, and try and put everybody else into difficulty.
Serge Pauwels, well, remember, Dimension Data are living a dream in their first Tour de France because they won 4 stages in the opening week of the race, and Pierre Rolland has come back. The relentless pacemaking of the world time trial champion Vasily Kirienka. We might see why he is tomorrow, of course. We have the time trial tomorrow, showing only 4.5 miles now.
Well, all of a sudden, Thomas Sakent, who looked like he had his legs on fire here this afternoon, has been put in difficulty by the acceleration of another Belgian. Serge Pauwels has made the move, but he's still very much in contact with him. The rider who managed to make the move across there was Dani Navarro, the Spanish rider on Team Cofidis.
4.4 miles to go, and I don't know whether the kilometre kite has been erected, so it could be still way up the mountain, so they may not have any indication when the finish is coming. But these boys are experienced. They'll have raced up this road before. Serge Pauwels is now zigzagging around, and Navarro knows it's his best chance. Now, he's not French, but he rides on a French team. They'd count that on Bastille Day.
Well, the funny thing is, Phil, casting our mind back to the last French winner on Bastille Day 2005 was David Moncoutier, and he rode for Team Cofidis.
He did, and he's on the race here. He's with some of the publicity people on Vittel. But Pauwels is a very good climber. I can only imagine the management of Dimension Dart are getting a little excited at the moment.
The funny thing about the rider on the front, Serge Pauwels, who was stamping out a pretty impressive rhythm there, Phil. It's bye-bye to Vasil Kirienka. Serge Pauwels has only ever won 1 race in his career, as far as I can go back, and that in fact was a stage of the Giro d'Italia back in 2009.
Well, 6 minutes 56. The break should survive because we're not sure what we think. They've only got 6.8 kilometres to go.
This is Mikel Landa now. He's had an up and down Tour de France as well, but when the crunch time comes, he seems to be riding himself back in to be one of the serious lieutenants for Chris Froome.
That's Luis Leon Sanchez just gone as well there for Astana. He's had a couple of days of falls as well. Zubeldia, not quite the oldest man in the race, that's Tesato. He's gone off the back, and this is a superb demonstration by Serge Pauwels. If Dimension Data turn this one around with victory on Mont Ventoux, well, they won't believe it.
Well, that'll keep the average going pretty well for them, Phil, because that'll make 6 victories out of 12 stages so far. Can they actually really dream that they're going to win another stage here on the Mont Ventoux? But the damage again being done at the back. In the dark blue and green jersey, just waiting, but further up the slopes, still with around about a 7-minute advantage.
This is Jarlinson Pantano here. He's going from the front for IM Cycling. He's a Colombian climber, and he's not going to be a marked man here, although they look to me as though they're coming after him.
Well, I didn't see it. It looked, well, it was definitely a Movistar rider was making the response.
It's not. It's Valverde. Yeah, it's Valverde, and this is a good move. for Valverde, but not for the team. We'll see.
Well, Alejandro Valverde, you know, he's still in 8th place in the overall standings, and maybe Team Sky are not concerned about a move coming from Alejandro Valverde, but Valverde is throwing down the gauntlet. He's trying to cause Team Sky to lift the pace a fraction, and what he's trying to do is make the race tougher for a later attack to come from Quintana.
It could well be the case. Now, Valverde himself is only 56 seconds off the yellow jersey of Froome. So he needs to win by 57 to pull on yellow, and they're reacting.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, I think half of Colombia have come out to the Mont Ventoux, because I don't think I've ever seen quite so many Colombian flags at the side of the road. And now number 9 is struggling. Geraint Thomas is in difficulty.
Now this is Valverde here, continuing to put on the pressure, trying to draw the sting of Sky, trying to make Sky chase him, otherwise he will get yellow. But his real reason, as Paul Sherman has said, is to soften them up, so perhaps Quintana can have a real go today as we close in on the finish. 3.6 miles still to go.
Well, further up the slope, these two riders going at mano a mano, man against man on these slopes now. They're looking at around about 6 kilometers to go. The man on the left-hand side, Serge Pauwels of Belgium, he just has not been able to put any time between himself and the rider who wears number 191, Danny Navarro of Cofidis.
The crowds have had to walk down from the top of Mont Ventoux. They've had to walk down 6 kilometers to find the race on the Tour de France, and all of them have packed in on this forested road towards Chaly-Reynard. And the battle after battle. Nieve has now gone. He was the early pacemaker for Sky, done his job, and now moves out of it. One by one they are dropping away here. This is Pierre Rolland. He tried an attack, it didn't work. He's paying for it.
But the reason is Alejandro Valverde went out on the attack, and he's trying to put pressure onto Team Sky. He's trying to isolate Chris Froome for when they get further up the slopes. What a racer this man is, you know, 3rd overall in the Giro d'Italia this year, and he's used moves like this in the past to help his young teammate Nairo Quintana. He did the same thing last year on the Alpe d'Huez.
But they didn't panic, and that's the whole thing. They just kept the rhythm. They didn't unleash anything, and they've gone back. Louis Meintjes, 157, the youngster, has got himself back onto the tail of Adam Yates. They're the top 2 riders in that white jersey competition.
Well, when you make a move at the start of the climb, as Pierre Rolland did, if you go too much into the red zone, all of a sudden you can't recover anymore. There's still 3 teams. Now the move from Quintana.
This is it. Now where's the reaction from Chris Froome? Because he'll have to go himself. Froome himself has picked up that pedalling cadence, but this time Quintana knows he's got to put some seconds back in the bank.
One of the greatest climbers in the world. He was given a lot of freedom by the team to prepare for the Tour de France, and he's waited for the moment. I think he's waited for the incline. This is a very steep part of the climb, around about 10%. But he's not opening the gap just yet.
We are 12 days into the Tour de France, and this is the first time we've seen the man from Colombia attack. Now, before this race started, he said the 3rd week of the Tour is when he will try to win it, but he's had to make this move.
And I'm just having a look behind. In fact, he's being chased by a Colombian, but this Colombian is a teammate of Chris Froome. That's Sergio Henao. And another little acceleration. He's seen the damage, looks over the shoulders to look into the face of the other riders with him, while Sergio Henao waits back, I think, there for Chris Froome.
Well, the reaction has not come yet from Chris Froome. It's not looking like the Chris Froome of yesterday, or the man who was in the Pyrenees. The gap is there, and can he kick again? Quintana's going to try. He's wondering why Froome hasn't joined him behind.
He's just looking to see the damage. He's trying to ascertain what is going on in this race. It's now Walter Poels now comes forward, and he will start to set the tempo. Look at him, his mouth wide open. Richie Porte has moved up onto the wheel of Chris Froome. If anybody knows Chris Froome, it's Richie Porte. For years he was a teammate. He was the man who helped Chris Froome win his early tours.
Well, the riders continue to drop away. The battle starts, but the real battle is with the yellow jersey, who's finally countered that attack as he's come up. Now we've got the workhorse. Henao and Wout Poels are the 2 Sky riders. Right behind is the 2 men who are in the Tour de France for victory. Warren Barguil, by the way, is slipping away at the back of the race. I think that chase has hurt him just a little bit too much.
Well, it's a bit tough here, because when we get the information of 5 kilometers to go, it's 5 kilometers kilometers to go, Phil, for the leading group of riders, while further back these guys have got a long time still in the saddle. And what is interesting is Thomas de Gendt has recovered and ridden himself through that bad patch and got himself back into the leading group, which is now 3 men strong.
Now another move by Nairo Quintana as he starts to kick again. You know, Froome looks down and really grits his teeth just now. Quintana trying to open a gap. Wout Poels is fantastic. He was involved in that crash.
But bear in mind, Phil, they do not want to respond to these accelerations. Team Sky's tactic is to ride at a steady tempo. They know what wattage they want to put out, and they will just ride steadily and see whether they can slowly drag themselves back up to Nairo Quintana.
I'm not sure how much longer Wout Poels can do this. It's tremendous riding by Wout Poels, Jens Voigt. Sorry, Jens, I'm saying we're just watching Wout Poels here give everything here, having been involved in that crash.
Well, as far as I could see, Nairo Quintana, I believe, is still testing. He is not on his limit yet. He's still testing, looking back, checking what the others do. And Wout Poels didn't look like he's reacting immediately. So I think Quintana's having a fair chance of dropping another Sky rider with his next attack, and then hopefully manage to gain some time back for him in the GC, because tomorrow's the time trial and he would love to have a little bit of time back on Chris Froome.
Yeah, but Jens, the big problem that the climbers have, I think, today is the fact that they're actually climbing into a headwind. Most of the real pure climbers, they like to climb with a tailwind because they can actually pick up the pace an awful lot higher, especially with those kind of accelerations. So I think the headwind, I hope you'll agree with me, will go against them.
Well, let's see. If they turn a little bit left or right, they might have some wind in the back, so that supports then another attack of Nairo Quintana. They just got to play with the situation they have.
Well, that wind just now is coming from the left of our picture. They're swinging around all the time on this climb, but one thing that is certainly not the case is what was reported today when there was no wind blowing in the forest, because there clearly is now as they continue to set the pace. Wout Poels doing a terrific job at the front.
But Dan Martin, who was sitting at this day in 3rd place in the overall situation, is now in a sincere difficulty. In 1:84, he started the day looking for 31 seconds. The rider just behind him is one of the teammates of Nairo Quintana, Daniel Moreno. Now, he's not going to assist him at all, but Dan Martin really, for the first time in this tour, under pressure.
That's a very sad sight, actually. We didn't expect to see that. The cameras are now picked up Dan Martin. Remember, he's probably losing his 3rd place overall at this moment in the tour. Back up to the 3 leaders: Serge Pauwels, Thomas de Gendt, Daniel Navarro.
Don't know. Well, again, the acceleration comes again from Thomas de Gendt.
Well, that's the wrong flag. Contador are no longer in the race, but the man who's hoping to replace him, Kreuziger, has also lost contact with the men that matter. Well, this is a superb piece of riding by Wout Poels. He's completely discouraged all of the attacks from this group. 3 kilometres to go for the leaders.
I was just thinking, Phil, about one of the great victories of Thomas de Gendt, the rider in the 1st position there in that red. Oh, there's a move here. Again.
I'm not too sure where that could be. Zakarin coming back to the group. I don't know where he's been. But hang on, Valverde's going on the left.
Well, Valverde once again sees it, and look at that. Sergio Henao, the rider, coming straight across to his wheel. He knows that he wants to start to mark all of these little moves, but Wout Poels, again, he doesn't jump away to get across the gap. He just slowly accelerates and brings it up to top speed.
These boys are about 4.5 kilometres still to climb.
Well, Phil, just looking at the group that we're looking at here with Wout Poels, the only man missing from the top 10 overall is Dan Martin, who is actually starting to recover a bit because he's only just off the back of the neutral service vehicle, so he's losing himself currently only about 30 seconds. All the other men in the top 10 are in the group. Yates,
but
Quintana.
30 seconds would push him outside the top 7 or 8 riders now. It's a very close race this year.
Yeah, but bear in mind, tomorrow's a time trial. It could all turn around. This group here, though, these are the men I think we're really talking about as De Gent goes once again. He's trying everything. He wants to make sure he wins this race on his own, but every time he attacks Serge Pauwels, the climber from Belgium, who, as I say, Phil, when I look back, I can only see one victory to his name throughout his career, and that was a stage in the Giro d'Italia. The big stage that De Gent won was the magic climb of the Stelvio, which climbed him up into third place overall in the Giro.
Wout Poels is the pacemaker for Team Sky here. Sergio Henao is the rider in second place. I'm just trying to see who's got into that third slot at the moment. The yellow jersey is here. Of the leaders of the race overall, Froome, Yates, Quintana, Mollema, Romain Bardet, Henao, Valverde. I haven't seen TJ Van Garderen, but he's still in there, yes. And so out of the top 9, the only man missing is Dan Martin.
And still Wout Poels on the front, doing that tempo making, and I have to say, as you can see, now is a little bit further. TJ Van Garderen most definitely there on the right hand side. His teammate, a couple of riders in front of him on the left there, or should I say in the middle, number 91 Richie Porte. And definitely, Phil, as you say, the only man from the top 9 overall missing from this group is Dan Martin for the moment.
And I see that Louis Meintjes is just tagged on to the back of that group, and the way this group is riding right now, he could move up into the top 11 riders overall in this race before the time trial tomorrow. This is the capture here of Cyril Lemoine. He was in that original group at one time, leading the race by 18 3/4 minutes.
Andre Greipel.
And Andre Greipel, same applies to him.
Well, it's a great chance and a great opportunity for Andre Greipel
that's the best
to
time
see.
he's ever seen a climber in action.
It certainly is, and that's no disrespect to the great German sprinter.
Adam Yates tagged onto the back and needs to move up here with Romain Bardet.
Well, Bardet, number 41, who currently sits in 6th place in the overall standings, he'll be looking for a little opportunity as well, maybe to... Froome's going!
This is it! 1.5 kilometres, I was wrong, but straight after him goes Porte and Quintana. Bardet's trying to kick in as well. This is going to be another demonstration by the Maillot Jaune, but this time they've marked him.
Well, they certainly have. The response coming immediately from Richie Porte, but also coming from Nairo Quintana. Quintana moves up there into 3rd position, but this is an ideal opportunity, Phil, for the Colombian to launch a counter move. If he's got anything in those legs when we get to the steeper gradients, he needs to try and hit Chris Froome right now.
Oh, Chris looks round, looks into the eyes of his friend but rival, and that's Richie Porte, the Australian. He gives it a second spin on those pedals, and I can't quite see what's happened to Quintana. He has been unhooked. Quintana losing ground.
Well, that answers a few questions here this afternoon. In the past, we've seen the acceleration coming from Chris Froome, but Quintana has always been able to respond. Here he's in difficulty. The only man who can stay with Chris Froome is the Australian Richie Porte, who must still be ruining the time lost in a mechanical on the 2nd day of the race.
Behind the poker face of this Colombian cyclist, he's never given anything away. We've always suspected he hasn't been quite up to it, and it looks right now as though he is not. He couldn't lift his pace to match Chris Froome, and the boys behind are clawing him back. Well, the crowd on Mont Ventoux are witnessing yet another demonstration by this amazing bike rider who's joined the ranks of the greats of the Tour de France historically now. This is Navarro climbing his way back for Cofidis. He's trying to get up to the leaders once again. There's 2 left.
Well, let's not forget, Phil, that when we look at the top of the screen and see a kilometre to go, that is for the leading group on the road. But further down, there's some serious damage being done by Chris Froome and Richie Porte. Nairo Quintana now has no friends in this group. He has now got to try and limit his losses. But Bauke Mollema moves.
Bauke's having a go now. I was about to say TJ Van Garden's having a much better day on this climb, but now it's Mollema having a little dig. He sits in 5th place overall, and we're talking seconds. There could be a reshuffling of the possible podium in Paris by the time we get to the finish today. And now Richie Porte is going well. He's gone to the front to help out Chris Froome.
Well, that was one for the books there. That's a big double joint for the man who crosses the line in first place. I have to say that Thomas de Kent was very crafty there in getting himself the points and the stage victory, and I think takes a little bit of relief off the shoulders now of Team Lotto Soudal.
What a great crowd this really is, cheering them home now. Steph Clement gets 4th place. So Chavanel will get the 5th place, and first Frenchman on Bastille Day. We're looking in the face of a rather confused Colombian rider right now. He tried to attack, it wasn't there. He's now having to chase the men who are damaging his overall finish in Paris. Well, if they're not in sight.
If there was ever any doubt that Alejandro Valverde was going to ride, look at this. Bauke Mollema now all of a sudden says, hey guys, I've got good legs here this afternoon. I can climb up even higher in the overall standings. I'm looking for 20 seconds or so to overtake Nairo Quintana in the standings.
That's right. If he gets 20 seconds, he'll be up to 3rd place overall in the Tour de France, with Chris Froome behind him there, the only man not losing time to him.
Well, the two leaders as well, Phil, in the Best Young Rider competition are in this group. Louis Meintjes 2nd in that competition. A little bit further forward in the white jersey was still Adam Yates.
Bauke Mollema has been put back in his place. Chris Froome has accelerated again. This man knows how to suffer.
So too, Phil, does Richie Porte, just sitting there in 2nd position. These guys, well, they're still keeping themselves up in the top 10 in the overall standings. Van Garderen is there. Alejandro Valverde just slipping back a fraction there, number 12. He's done everything he can to pace his man back up.
Richie Porte could be in the top 6 riders in the Tour de France tonight, despite that massive loss of time in the opening days of the Tour because of problems with that crash on day 1. We're looking now as they continue to go up short, as Adam Yates is still there in the white jersey. He'll keep that. He has a private battle with Louis Meintjes. They've really thrown the gauntlet down. Only seconds as they continue to climb. This will be Bert-Jan Lindemann coming over the line now. Almost forgotten about him. He's the man that actually
there's a problem here, Phil.
What's happened?
Well, there's an accident here. As far as I can see, that was the yellow jersey group, and they've gone down. That was because a motorbike got involved somewhere there. I saw the yellow jersey group and Bauke Mollema.
Well, you're seeing pictures of well around the world, but we can tell you there's a problem here. Somebody has gone down with them, and here's the situation. And they're all slowing down here. We haven't got the full story yet. You're seeing live pictures here at the moment. There's no remarks coming through on Radio Tour. But there is Richie Porte struggling with his bike. This is unbelievable. Now we'll have to see what the judges do about this, because we don't know what has caused that delay, but normally they're not in the last kill. Now they're shouting it from the race radio. Well, this has turned the whole situation upside down now. Where will the time be taken? Will they do whatever they do to Chris Froome because he's gone up without a bike? Meanwhile, up towards the finish here, riders are now beginning to come through at the summit. And that's Aru coming through there.
There's Bauke
Mollema. He's coming up towards the finishing line.
Froome is on a neutral service bike now, and let's hope
it doesn't fit him either.
Well, you've also got to wonder, Phil, whether or not he has the right pedals on as well.
Yeah, it didn't look like he did, I must confess. Bauke Mollema has come in, and in theory he is going right up the overall classification tonight. The bike isn't even working here. He's now being... These guys must wonder what on earth has happened to Chris Froome as they continue to sprint for the line. Adam Yates here. Another good result for the man who could be the next yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Quintana's coming home, led by Alejandro Valverde. It's going to take a bit of sorting out. TJ Van Garderen is coming home. You know, it could be that Adam Yates is the next leader of the Tour, because the yellow jersey has been given a bike that's absolutely useless.
Well, Phil, that is really bad. I really don't know. In fact, you're going to have to look right down deep into the rules and regulations as to what can happen there, and we don't really know, because it was a garbled image.
Situation.
Well, there was a garbled image there as we saw a Froome involved with a motorbike somehow, but
look, Paul comes in. He said, "What on earth? What's going on?" And here comes Chris Froome now. He was cruising to another high finish, another good situation, another yellow jersey. Now we have to wait to decide what they decide on this occasion. I know the rules are quite clear. You can't move anywhere without your bike in a bike race. And he run, I don't know how many 100 metres up there. As the riders come in, Dan Martin it is who's just come in there. And in the back is the arrival of the Maillot Jaune. Many of these people here won't even know why he's so far behind.
Well, we're going to have to wait till a little bit later on to find out. Just look at him shaking his head there. Well, it's not over, Froome. I have to tell him one thing, Phil. Let's not forget there's an individual time trial tomorrow. But psychologically, that's a blow.
There'll be meetings. Then that's all I can say. I really don't know what they're going to decide now. They'll look at all the footage. Geraint Thomas coming in, hardly behind his team captain at the end of the day.
It's Pierre Rolland coming in there as well in the green jersey. But what a story the Mont Ventoux is going to tell us at the end of the day when we get the final overall results.
What would have happened, Paul, if we'd have gone to the top of Mont Ventoux? Well, there, Thomas de Gendt no doubt has won the stage. Serge Powell second, Navarro third. All the riders in the breakaway go right down the list of finishers. The best of the rest really at the moment will be Bauke Mollema, who's crossed the line officially in 10th place. And there's no doubt that Richie Porte collided with a motorbike, which was a television camera motorbike, a live camera.
This series is Panic on board of the Sky Express. Well, can he turn it all around psychologically? Can he come back from that? And we'll have to wait for the race referees to go back and have a look at that. But it didn't change the results. A great ride by the Audacious on a day like this, because Thomas de Gendt was part of that early breakaway. It's his second victory of the year, but he can add this victory at the top of the Mont Ventoux to a victory at the summit of the Stelvio in the Giro d'Italia.
Confusion is the word of the day, but let's not take anything away from Thomas de Gendt. What a brilliant win it was from him. The fall that involved Porte and Froome and Mollema had nothing to do with the result of Thomas de Gendt. He delivered the biggest win of his career, and he's got some big ones. That's the 10th win in his career, and 8 of them have come at World Tour races, the highest level in the sport. He's won 2 stages at the Volta Catalunya, 2 stages at Paris-Nice, a stage at the Giro d'Italia, a stage at the Tour de Suisse, and now he's won a stage at the Tour de France. Here's a look at the general classification provisional. Yates leads, he's in the yellow jersey. Mollema up in a second position at 9 seconds. Nairo Quintana on a bad day has moved to 3rd. Romain Bardet in 4th, then Valverde. Froome in 6th place, then TJ Van Garderen, Fabio Aru, Dan Martin, then Joaquin Rodriguez. And I await confirmation on the position of Richie Porte. Here's the stage winner, Thomas de Gendt.
Congratulations, that was amazing. This morning you told me I'm not going to attack, or I'm not sure of it, yet you win the battle of the Belgians here at the Ventoux.
I had the feeling that I have to go in the break today. We knew it was a day, either 3 guys who go in the break and they take them back 20 kilometers to go, or it's a big break. And my feeling said I had to go, and my feeling was right today.
Of course, you've won in the Giro on the Stelvio. Where do you rank this victory? That was 4 years ago, the Stelvio.
I think I put them on equal height. It's both nice victories. This is of course a tour, but the Stelvio was more emotional for me, and I think I put them on the same level.
An Italian tradition to close then. Who do you dedicate this victory to?
Steve Brooks. It's we think about him every day, and we hope that the situation gets better in the next days, weeks, months, and we fight for Stig.
Many congratulations. Thank you very much.
When he speaks of Stig Brooks. It does bring a lump in the throat and almost a tear to the eye. Stig Brooks was involved in a nasty accident about 6 weeks ago, maybe a little bit more than that, and he's been in a coma and not responding at this stage, and things, according to the medical practitioners, don't look great, but we do cross our fingers. And today, the win by Thomas De Gendt was for Stig. Adam Yates, the white jersey changes to yellow. At the very least, he'll be on the podium for the presentation to collect the yellow jersey. He missed out on doing it for the white jersey. And then we'll get an interview with Adam Yates. And what can he possibly say collecting the yellow jersey in such circumstances? If this is the general classification, and if it stands like this, the individual time trial tomorrow just carries even more importance than it already did. Chris Froome looked so strong today. So too Mollema and Port. Thomas De Gendt was good. He was dropped twice on the climb of Mont Ventoux. Serge Pales in second position on the stage, and it was Danny Navarro in third.